Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sabah Law Student Initiative Crossroads, the optional roads available with your degree. So for today's webinar meet, we will be exploring the various pathways a law degree offers. And with us today, we have four exceptional panelists walking us through this very journey. So now without further ado, before we move on with the panel discussion, I invite my President of Gagasan Mahasiswa Undang-Undang Sabah, Joshua McDonald, to say a few words of encouragement. Joshua?
All right, thank you, Arthur. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to see everyone here today. First of all, I would like to thank the team and the volunteers for making this webinar meet possible. I want to extend my gratitude to the honored panelists for making the time to impart their wisdom and experience for today's webinar meet. I do hope there will be interesting questions that will be asked from the participants today. So for everyone's information, the society is still pending its registration with the Register of Societies, but no worries, we'll make sure the society get registered soon. I do hope everyone find this discussion helpful and insightful, but most importantly, enjoy the whole experience with everyone here. So without any further delays, Arthur will take it from here.
So thank you, Joshua, for your very warm welcome, warmer than our weather here. So we will now move on to our main event for today, the panel discussion. So the way it's going to go is Joshua and I will be asking a few questions to the panelists, and you guys, the attendees, can just sit back, relax, grab a snack, maybe have your lunch if you haven't eaten your lunch yet. Yeah. So as mentioned before, we have four esteemed panelists before us. And we're going to first start off with Miss Dayang Nur Khairunisa, followed by Miss Sheelasheena. And then we're going to have a short 2 minutes break to catch our breath. And then we'll start it off again with Miss Amanda Allus. And then we'll finish off strongly with Mr. Roger Chin. So after we finish with the panel discussion, we will have a Q&A session. So please note for all the attendees and everyone watching, you are free to use the Q&A tab we have at the bottom of the screen to ask your respective questions. So I would like to inform everyone, if you want to ask a particular question to a particular panelist, please mention who you would like to direct the question to. Otherwise, we have to take it as a general question. So that's for the Q&A part. And for the panelists we have here, just to brief notice to all our four panelists, we have a schedule to keep. So we will have our secretary here, Jonathan Richard, as our timekeeper, and he will be keeping track of our time. He will come in from time to time and inform in the panelist chats the time remaining for each panelist. So at the 25 minutes mark for a panelist session, he will ring a bell to notify the 25 minutes mark. That's the bell. And at the 30 minutes mark, Jonathan will ring it twice to end the time slot for the panel discussion. So I apologize in advance that if I have to interrupt one of the wonderful panelists we have here. So we're going to move on and start off with our first panelist, Miss Dayang Nur Khairunisa Binti Noraffandi. Now, for everyone here watching, Miss Khairunisa is currently the youngest legal officer at the Sabah State Attorney General's chambers. Upon joining in, she was immediately invited to assist the former State Attorney General, Datuk Brendan Keith Saw, in the constitutional case of the dissolution of the Sabah Legislative Assembly. Now, before she joined the AZ Chambers, she was a legal associate at Nicholas Fung Tokuzip & Co., where she handled civil litigation matters such as contentious probate proceedings, bankruptcy, and other related matters. Employments aside, she was recently announced as the third runner-up in the first ever national policy making competition. That competition was the Sweet Spot Malaysia Digital Youth Hackathon for Diabetes, which was organized by Undi 18, Sanofi, and Arus Academy. Apart from that, in the art scene, Miss Khairunisa is a freelance actress and has been awarded the Best Actress award in a few theater competitions in her university years. So, Miss Khairunisa, welcome.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you, Arthur, the moderator. So I
Hi,
would
Miss
also
Khairunisa. I
hi,
hope you're
hi.
doing well. I hope it was.
Yeah, great so far. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I'll just like to start by saying thank you to Gagasan Mahasiswa Undang-Undang Sabah for inviting me to share some thoughts about our topic for today, which is the optional routes available with law degree. And I feel truly humble and honored to be standing here today with such great panelists, as I'm just a junior, a baby, I might say, in the legal field. So I guess I'll just give a brief background on the hows and whys I became a legal officer
Yeah, sure.
as Sabah State Attorney General Chambers SATC. Okay. So as mentioned, I am fairly new to the legal field. I studied law for 5 years in Peninsular Malaysia, and I thought to myself, it's finally time for me to go home. So it is time for me to embark on a new journey, which is applying for pupillage. So I started sending out applications to nearby legal firms and also to SATC. I heard from a legal firm in Tiketam Square first, which is Ayam Jarin and Co. And then I had the opportunity to do my pupillage there for a month. And around that time, I get an offer to do my pupillage at SAGC. I then completed my 11 months of pupillage at SAGC. So it was a very exciting time, and it was a great transition from learning on private legal firm matters to state affairs. And after doing my pupillage at SIGC, I began to appreciate the history, the lawmaking processes, and everything to know about our beloved state of Sabah. And just a quick ad, if any of you are interested to know more about what the things that I've learned when I did my pupillage in SIGC, you can feel free to ask me questions about it. And if you're interested in doing your pupillage here and you are interested in the possibility of working with me, then I'd also be more than happy to fill you in with the necessary details on how to apply for pupillage here. So, and yeah, after I finished my pupillage after long 12 months, I was called to the bar in October 2019. It was last year, it was very new. And I had my first job as a civil litigation lawyer in a legal firm called Nicholas Fung Takus and Co. earlier this January. So some might have thought, oh, she already has clear goals on what she wanted to become since she was in university years. But no, not really. Quite the contrary. When I finished law school, I was pretty much nervous. Maybe how you guys are feeling right now. And I also didn't know about the career option of becoming a state counsel. What I knew at the time was that I would do anything but become a civil litigator. I do not want to become a civil litigator. Simply reason being is because I was timid, I was insecure. I do not want even the slight possibility of the opposing counsel or the presiding judge looking down on me. I do not want the possibility at all. But yeah, simply put, I do not want to be seen as stupid. And I was very worried about that. But as time passes by, when you're doing your pupillage, well, at least for me, I gained a little bit of confidence to a point that I thought to myself, you could literally throw me in anywhere in the legal field and just give me a few days to adjust and research on it. And I could assure you there is nothing that I could not handle or do. So it was just a quick mind shift for me. Instead of thinking of what if they think I'm stupid, I turned that thought into, oh, what if I'm actually right? What if I'm actually in the right this time? So, being in the legal field, it means that you're always in this continuing learning process. So, I guess my perception when I was learning in law school and now that I'm working have truly changed a bit. And that is my piece of advice. So, if now that you're thinking you're scared of doing something, don't be. Chances are other people around you also don't know what it is about. So there's no harm being scolded at when you could learn and improve from there. So I had done my 11 months of chambering at SAGC, and then I was thrown to work as a civil litigator. Then my first case was on contentious probate proceedings. When I was in SAGC, I've never done any probate matters. I've never done divorce matters, never done bankruptcy ones. This one being contentious probate proceedings. I don't know a thing about it. And that means I just have to relearn, just have to research everything all over again. And the most fun part about it was that my opposing counsel, um, it was also his first time doing contentious probate proceedings. So we were learning as we go, subjected to course directions as well. And unfortunately, I was not able to stay for so long in this firm as I was then offered a position to work as a legal officer in SAGC. I only had the pleasure to work with this firm for a brief period of 7 months, but I truly appreciate and I learned all the things that I've learned while I was there. And I started working for the state just recently in August 2020. So this month, in fact, it would be my 5 month working officially employed as a legal officer here. But however, I've known all the staffs and officers for almost 2 years as I did my chambering in 2018. And excitedly at the time when I first come in, Dune was dissolved, as mentioned. So during my first week, I was asked to join the research team for the dissolution of Dune's case. So I got busy really quickly. But it was thrilling to be a part of the team and supporting our Dato AG. So it's always these little things, although I only worked in the background of things and assisted my team here and there, the decision and outcome of this case would affect future decisions and could paint a new political landscape in Sabah. So my job scope varies a lot, but the main importance of it is to safeguard the interests in the government of state of Sabah and the governmental departments under it. So basically, that's just a brief overview about my working experience so far.
Oh,
Wow.
that's Joshua, you can ask.
Yeah, wow.
Go
Yeah, I
first.
think both of us were
You're
amazed
speechless.
by
Yeah,
both of us were amazed by your
that was a
story,
good
Miss
Oh,
story.
Lisa.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and I think I'll be taking the first question. So the first one I would like to ask,
Uh-huh.
why did you why did you decide to work for Sabah AG and not for the federal AG?
Okay, good question.
Mm.
Well, actually, I applied for both. I
Oh,
applied to
Oh,
work for Sabah
interesting.
State and Federal AG, but the offer for State comes in first.
Oh,
I
okay.
see. All right.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any differences in terms of these two district level or these two levels?
But what, Federal and State?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for federal wise, they are more concerned about criminal matters, and
Oh,
departments are related to federal level. However, for state AG, we would only deal about state matters. For example, like if there's a suit regarding civil or governmental departments, then that's where we would step in terms like that. We do have a bit of criminal matters, a bit, but it's not much of just a touch, just a light touch on criminal matters. Because I remembered when I did my chambering there, I did some sort of report for those who applied for pardon, those criminals that wanted to be pardoned and they have to send their report to pardon board. I would be the one doing the reports and everything. So it's really interesting. You could actually read up on the gruesome facts
oh,
and the sentences. Yeah, so it's a fun experience for me.
Then I
wow.
think you'll be expecting a letter from me to apply with the Sabah AG in the time
You
future,
should,
Oh,
in the
you
near
should,
future.
you should. It's a fun
that's
experience. We're like a whole family here.
Oh wow!
yeah.
All right,
Oh,
that's reassuring to hear. I think
Yeah.
Arthur can take it
okay.
from here. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
Josh, that was nice self-promotion there. Let's bring it back to the students watching. So I think a
Okay.
lot of the students would really like to know, like, oh, what are the things that you do as an AG, like the roles and responsibilities that you've done?
Oh, so it's really different compared to the private legal firms. and it's more concerned on the matters that I am involved with. For example, as I said earlier, that the downside of doing your pupillage at State AG is that you won't be exposed that much on non-contentious matters or contentious matters, for example,
Oh.
bankruptcy, the you wouldn't learn that much about bankruptcy proceedings, procedures, and everything. You would not learn that much.
Mm-hmm.
However, your legal expertise would only be confined to the subject matter that the suit is on. For
I see.
example, when it comes to NCR, native customary rights, or any other land matters, I assure you, you would slowly memorize the provisions of Sabah Land Ordinance.
Oh my
Okay, because
goodness.
that's like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
And I mean, also to add to that is that
Mm-hmm.
booking in SAGC is multi-dimensional,
Mm-hmm.
meaning we do not only have litigation area. We have, in fact, 5 divisions. So litigation is the main one that deals with civil suits suing the government or the government departments or judicial review applications. The second one is advisory division. So each of the legal officers would be given one respective ministry each that you would be in charge of. So if there are any contracts, MOUs, or legal advices that they need or require, they would have to write to us and would hold meetings to figure out their wants and needs, address their problems and concerns, and vet their proposed agreement. So it's more like legal opinion, legal writing. Yeah, so you just give advice in regards to that. Third one is drafting. My job scope actually involves all three. However, my
Oh, that's a
main,
lot.
I have to do all three, but my main focus would be in drafting
I
as
see.
we lack manpower in that department as of now. So, as the name would suggest, drafting, we research and draft laws. So, usually the government departments would send us their proposed amendments to their ordinance or proposed rules.
Mm-hmm.
We would then look into such proposals and research to check whether this proposal would be in contravention to any existing provisions or rules from other laws. We would have countless of meetings with the relevant stakeholders, and we always have to put ourselves in their shoes to see things from their point of view. So in a way, you could become well taught and learn more on other new things as well. Usually, drafting is very tedious and could take up a long time. So there is a need to constantly recheck so it is perfect when it's being passed. And even the smallest things like punctuation
Yeah.
matters.
Your name is on
Cannot,
that
you
document.
cannot screw it up.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it's really fun. Practice. You need to be a perfectionist. That's why you have to
Ooh.
research over and over again. One of my legal officers said she realized that she is slowly losing sight because of constantly reading and checking the laws over and over again.
Like literal sight, like,
Yeah,
or
little
oh
sight. She's
my
like,
goodness.
uh,
Okay.
too much reading, too much reading. And there are two more new divisions here, which is the Sharia one that deals with Islamic matters and affairs. Very interesting. You would learn a lot from here about those who converted, many issues, which is very fun. And lastly, there's a reprint division where it would take its role when there's too much amendments being made on a certain law, and thus it requires for it to be reprinted as to provide a smooth law. So basically, if you do your chambering here, you would learn about 5 divisions. You
Ooh.
wouldn't, you wouldn't learn that much about like other civil procedure matters, but you would learn a lot about state affairs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's very wide because
I know.
I
Yeah.
think when a lot of the students they see about AG's chambers, they see it like, wow, this is such a like a glamorous kind of job. Like everyone wants to.
Glamorous.
Yeah, I guess I mean like it's like a big status right there. But I think you can like, how explain to us the difference between this AG kind of workload as compared to like a private or civil kind of
Workload.
yeah, how is the workload different?
Kind of hard for me to say, honestly, because
Oh no.
like, okay, for example, private legal firm, it depends on the legal firm itself, right? Like,
Yep.
what are the type of subject matters that you're handling as of now? If you have like this kind of matters, then yeah, it's just that for a state, it is a continuous cases would come. It's like every single day, there's always a new case suing the government. There's like
Oh,
constant flow of it.
oh.
And then and then you not only look into the litigation part, but you also have to take care of your ministries, the government departments, whenever they feel like, oh, they wanna add something, they want to amend something, it should go through you as well. So it's just various matters involved in the state. I mean, if you're in the, I mean, from my experience, my limited experience in the legal firm, um, it's always concerning litigation, just that. So for this one, you have to think about drafting, advisory, litigation, and other state matters as well. Mm.
Yeah, I guess because a lot of people kind of see that being like if you work as a servant, especially considering the pandemic and the unemployment rates that are going on right now, they see like civil servant job is pretty stable job, so they kind of would go for that instead. Do you think this is true or like?
It's a pretty stable job, huh? Kind of difficult for me to answer that. I mean, it depends. It depends from which angle you're looking at. Regardless of whether we are in a pandemic situation or in an unemployment crisis, if you're working as a legal officer here, you would still be subjected to yearly assessments. And that assessments would then reveal whether you're capable of carrying out the work and responsibilities that comes with it. Thus, at the start of my job, there would be a system where I have to fill in my work, my duties, and by the end of the year, my assessor would review my performance. Thus, to say it is completely stable would be a misconception, because in order for you to truly feel stable, comfortable, and permanent in a job, you have to guarantee A plus working ethics.
I see. Wow.
Mm.
So assessments every year. It's like a
Yeah,
test.
like yearly assessments. There are certain other things that you have to think about. But if you do your chambering here first, then I'll explain more.
I see. So since your job scope as an AG is quite wide, have you ever been transferred to a smaller cities around Sabah or different working environment or anything?
Oh no, not really. I mean, due to the given pandemic situation, of course, I
Yeah,
would not
true.
be any transfers. However, there is a possibility of you being placed in your respective ministries that you serve, such as in the Sabah Land and Service Department, Jabatan Tanah. The registrar is actually a legal officer employed under SAGC.
I see.
Yeah, so it actually also depends.
Interesting. So you mentioned earlier that you guys don't really dwell into the criminal law side
Yeah,
of
yeah.
things, but like what are the things that you do touch on in criminal law?
Like the things that I said, just for criminals that applied for pardon to the pardon board. That's like
Pardon.
the hint of criminals that I had, the hint of criminals that I had when I did my chambering days.
I
But
see.
as far as I'm concerned, 2 years I'm there, 1 year chambering, and then now I'm working as a legal officer. There's not much criminal matters that I have to deal on.
I see. So just now you mentioned about being a perfectionist is kind of a real important thing to have if you want to be in this kind of
Drafting,
work.
in
Yeah,
drafting.
drafting kind of things. So if you could advise the students watching the webinar right now, like what
Uh-huh.
are the skill sets or personalities or anything that they should work on if they wish to work in your kind of environment, your
In the
kind of,
state AG,
yeah,
what are the skills? Or
or maybe personalities or don't
you have
drink.
to be very hardworking.
I see.
You have to be very, very hardworking, meaning that sometimes the officers themselves, they would be very busy doing their own matters. So the chambering students, the pupils, they have to show that they are very hardworking. They constantly ask for jobs and not afraid to ask questions. I still remember my first day of chambering. I didn't had much work because all the officers were away. But to those who are still in the office, I would knock their door every single day and ask if there is a job for me to do.
I see.
Yeah, and then you have to take into account. You have to take advantage of the big library that we have, because our library, we still have like copies from 1800s and something. So like if you
Must
do
be
your
a
research,
yeah.
yes, if you do your research, it would be very beneficial for you, and that you would also learn about so many things at the same time.
I see. Must be quite a big library
It's a
for.
very big library.
Yeah, I see. So yeah, overcome. I think most of the issues that students have when
Uh-huh.
like with this thing is anxiety, like get
Mm,
overcoming that barrier to approach people, talk to people, being brave in front of the judge and in front of the
mm,
council.
mm,
Yeah. So
mm.
how did you manage to overcome this kind of this anxiety issue?
Yeah, I actually really do have that. It's like real issues, I'd say. Like when you become a law student, right? Then you start thinking about job. Oh my God, how am I gonna project the things that I have learned in law school into practice, right? And then what if you are going to go against a very senior lawyer, like a very senior judge? Sometimes you would feel anxious about it. But the thing that I have in mind is that sometimes other opposing side or the judge, they're still also learning. There's always like something for you to learn. So, for example, in the case that I had, the contentious public proceedings,
Mm-hmm.
I was like very scared because I don't know about the whole procedures. But turns out the opposing counsel also don't know about the procedures as well. So yeah,
The
we had to
coincidence.
learn. Yeah, so we had to learn together. So in the end, I have to teach him a bit. And
Oh,
we learn from
kind
each
of a
other.
teamwork, even though you
Yeah,
guys
well,
are.
not that much of a teamwork, not that much of a teamwork. It's just that
Okay.
we procedure wise, maybe I would give a bit of an advice, see
Mm,
how things goes. So it's just a matter of mindset. You don't have to be scared, even if you were to be scolded, or even if you were to be looked down upon. It's okay. This is only that one point of time. You could always improve later on.
mhm.
Yeah.
I see.
So build that confidence.
Yep, that's a really good life skill for everyone to learn.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and also kind of a interesting perspective that the opposing counsel can also be in your feeling the same way.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind
they could
of
also feel the same way. Judges could
yeah.
also feel the same way. That's why you need to direct the judges. You have to clearly point out the laws and everything. I guess like if you are coming from a standpoint of a civil litigator, you always have to assist the court into pointing out the relevant issues at hand, and that has been very helpful in submissions.
I see. Okay,
Mm,
so you mentioned you've worked under Mr. Brendan Keefsaw, the man himself. How is it like
yeah.
working under him? Is he kind of strict or
Oh,
is he?
he's very nice. He's very nice. I think I entered a month after him.
Mhm,
So we had to do meetings. At first, I was a bit, meeting the man himself, kind of
mhm.
scary, and we have to talk about legal issues, but pressing legal matters at the time about the case. But he was very nice. He was very helpful. He would listen to you. He would listen to you attentively. He would like look to your eyes and listen to whatever you have to say. Then very diplomatic as well. So I really truly appreciate the fact that I get to work under him as well.
Yeah, I've met him a few times. He's actually a
Oh, really?
very
Oh, he's so
nice
nice.
person. Like
He's so nice.
I
Yeah,
love
we
his
met
accent
again.
as well.
Yeah, we met again yesterday. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. So um, you've mentioned working under Nicholas Fong Tokuzip.
Opposite.
Yep.
Yeah.
The legal associate there. What kind of things do you do there in civil litigation matters?
Mm, I did lots of stuff. I did bankruptcy matters. That's one I have to relearn about the procedures as well.
Mhm.
Tracking out the basic things, probate, and other stuff as well. I'm not sure that I could disclose stuff or not. But yeah, those are the basic things. But I only got the chance to work there for 7 months before I had to leave tender my resignation. So it was very sad to
Oh,
let me go.
it's sad to leave the workplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a very nice place for me. So it was a very great start for me to my career. But yeah, now I'm settling in as a state legal officer in SAGC. Mm.
Hey, Joshua, you gonna say something?
Oh yeah. That's
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, but
interesting. answer from for the questions, but I
Yeah.
have my own questions again.
Oh no,
Okay.
here you go.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that been studying in public universities, all the laws would be in mostly primarily would
Peninsula.
be
Yeah.
would be primarily in Peninsula. But so when you moved to Sabah, how did you overcome the shift when you already started working in Sabah's AG, or in the legal profession itself?
As I said, it's a continuous learning session. So you really had to relearn everything from the start. And becoming a chambering student in SAGC has its own perks in a sense that I have access to multiple books that we have in the library. So sometimes if I do my cham, you would see me in the library just reading up, doing research there. And we would usually have like interesting cases as well. So as time passes by, you would eventually memorize the relevant provisions under the Sabalan Ordinance, especially on the NCR part. I also actually had an opportunity to go for a course on native customary rights when I was in JTU. Oh, that's also another interesting part. If you do your chambering at SAGC, I don't know why it feels like a promotion to do your chambering at SAGC, but this is just exposure wise. So if you do your chambering at SAGC, you would be placed in the district land service department for a month.
Oh,
Yeah, so there you would learn about land matters, the procedures and everything. You would be placed there for a month, and then you would also be placed to federal for 2 weeks. So
okay.
there you could learn about criminal matters and everything. That would bring you to courts, see how the criminal trials are. So there's a few things involved. So when I was doing my month in JTU, Land Survey Department,
Mhm.
I had the opportunity to go to courses on native. So it was really interesting.
Interesting.
See. Oh,
Oh,
I
you
thought you
wanna?
wanna. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So, you mentioned that the AGC kind of works. You did like judicial review kind of things. So does it mean you get work close to like public scrutiny kind of things since it's quite open to the public?
Judicial review kind of stuff. For
Yeah.
example, um, well, I guess everything that you work on if you're in SATC,
Mhm.
you have to think about how the public would react as well, whether they could, and see whether everything is according to procedures or not. Usually, judicial review they wanted to review on the decision that has been made,
Mhm.
but sometimes, for example, on land matters, whenever they have complied with all the necessary procedures in issuing something or making a decision, then that would be it. They would not like look deeper into it. Usually, whenever the procedures has been complied with, then that is okay. However, if people are not satisfied with such decisions, then they could do for judicial review and see
I
how
see.
it goes. Mm.
Okay. Um, so I guess we're kind of reaching the limits of our time. So, so thank you very much for the sharings, Miss Karunisa,
Yeah.
especially from a legal officer. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of the students really appreciate the tips and advice and the routes, what to look out for, what to go for,
Mm-hmm.
the being a perfectionist and the workload, especially to be prepared.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, thank you very much, Miss
And
Nora
thank you, thank
Karunisa.
you, thank you. You're
You
welcome.
So, okay. Um, as a reminder to all of the attendees watching, we do have a Q&A tab at the bottom. So don't be shy to ask questions. You can ask Miss Karnisa about her work in the AG, in the Sabah AG as well. So hopefully you guys can um, ask ask maybe better questions than I can. So yeah. So now we're gonna move on to our second panelist, Miss Sheelasheena Damian. So Miss Sheelasheena is currently a policy analyst for WWF Malaysia. Her advocacy portfolio includes Sabah Terrestrial Conservation Program and Marine Program in Sabah, and Sarawak Conservation Program. So these advocacies focus on matters related to wildlife and habitat management, sustainable development, legislative framework, and addressing emerging threats to conservation, just to name a few. So besides her work on the in as a policy analyst, she had also developed a few modules such as investigation and prosecution SOP for the Sabah Wildlife Department, module for sentencing guideline in Sabah, and she additionally also has about 7 years of experience dealing with environmental crime and policy. Outside of the wildlife front, she had received her LLB from UKM and had worked 4 years as a deputy public prosecutor with the federal government of Malaysia. She was also a UNDP consultant for National Specialist in Policy and Land Use. So yeah, Miss Sheila, glad to have you with us. I hope you're doing fine in these difficult times.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity from Gagasan Mahasiswa Undang-Undang Sabah. Actually, I just found out about this. I know you guys are fairly new. There's a good movement. I wish it was when I was still a student. Thank you so much for the opportunity. That's a very lengthy introductions. But I was given a very open-ended structure on how to tell the story.
Yeah.
My journey of being a lawyer, or before or after. I will try to make a structure, but if it's not inspired, but I hope you will pick up a few lesson learned, especially for the student going to the career soon. But my assurance is that opportunity outside is really a lot. You really have to be open mind about it. So that is to have that positive attitude is very important. So as Atta was saying that I started my career in the government, but before that even a little bit roller coaster for me. I was not. I think some of you guys, or maybe the panels, or even the student, you really want to become a lawyer and you go to law school, pick up that when you do your application. I think most of you guys are. Actually, I was not. I was not one of those students. I was actually really preparing myself to become an architect. I was in an architecture school in UTM, Skudai, for 1 month. And then I think my dad, the whole family is actually wanted me to become a lawyer because of in Kuala Penyu, is small town in Kuala Penyu. If you are guys from Kuala Penyu, say hi. Small town from Kuala Penyu is I think at that time it's very few people who studied law, and my family really want a lawyer in a family. I don't know why, and my dad is the one who actually make that second applications to UKM, so so that I was be able to actually study law there, and fortunately I got it. So I was crying from UTM actually when I make that decision, why I should switch to law school. It's not even a bad second choice, you see. That's what my professor in architecture school was saying. It's not even a bad second choice option. So I really have to take it because it's an opportunity. So at that time, when I was 19 or 20, I make a very big decision of my life. Should I let go my dream or should I go for this one? But there are personal things that personal reason why I choose it, why I choose to let go. In a way, I already achieved my dreams, right? I already in a architecture school. So I studied in UKM for 4 years. The things about when you are a person who doesn't want to do something, then you are almost like being forced to to finish it. You at that time you are in a crossroad whether you want to be bad at it or you have a decision to make whether you want to be bad at it or you want to make use of that opportunity. So and I think I'm very fortunate as well because I was a scholar, a Shell scholar. So in order for you to maintain Shell scholarship, you really have to hit 3-pointer every semester. If not, they will take out your scholarship. So that is a motivation for me to study, to finish my study, to make it really, don't be a bad student. So that is the motivation. I don't have a focus like you guys. After law school, I want to become a lawyer. I don't have that focus. I think I don't even have that until my 4th years. So I was really lost. But what my motivation is and what is my focus is that I really have to finish my law school with 3 pointers, maintain my scholarship, because it will be a shame to my family, right? So that is the focus. Even a little focus is very important for you guys. So when I finish my law school, again, you are lost and stuff like that. But I think I have a very good exposure when when you are doing your internship. You have an internship before you do chambering, right? So when I did my internship, I actually came back to Sabah and I interned with Chin Jigulam. Mr. Chin Tekmeng is my master actually. I don't know how I asked him, but his answer to that question really stick to my mind for so long. I asked him, what should I do, because I'm lost. Remember, I'm a law student, lost law student, okay? And then I remember what he said to me: start with litigation. Always start with litigation. So I take that. Whatever it is, I will start with litigation. So I finished my internship, finished 4 years school, and during my study in UCAM, I don't even take all this. We have an elective law, right? We have law degree, a law subject that you have to take additional. So I don't take all this administrative, human right. I don't take all that law. What I took at the time is actually a banking law, Islamic banking law, because I was thinking, if I want to become a lawyer, might as well become rich about it, become a rich lawyer. So I took all that, because at the time, especially 2004, 2006, Islamic banking law is really emerging. So it's a new thing for us. So I studied that all. In my mind, you know what? Go and become a lawyer who is rich lah. So after I finished my 4 years of school, I chambered at Peninsula Malaysia, small medium a law firm that actually do a lot of civil litigations, banking, and all that. I did almost 8 months, um, and then I think during the 8 months, I was feeling like, you know what, this is not something that I want. I always struggle within myself, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm always dragging my feet. And I think I'm very fortunate at the time as well. There's an opportunity to be part of the AG chambers, the federal AG chambers. Of course, you need to apply and all that. And I got an interview during my 8 months. So in the interview, you don't get to choose which department you want to actually go. But they ask you grueling question. I remember at the time, the AG is Tan Sri Gani Patayal. I remember how he asked me a question. I almost want to cry during the interview.
Oh no.
It's really, you have to be ready because they really ask hard question. So, but at Damian at the time, I really want to do prosecutions departments. I really want to go to court. I really want to experience the whole thing because I remember what Mr. Chin tell me, start with litigation. So luckily, I'm one of those people who admitted to join the chambers. And I let go my chambering that almost finishing. And Mr. Lee at the time was like, she is so mad. And he was like, you're going to finish and why I'm not finishing? And I said, I'm not going to let go an opportunity. So I'm sure there will come a time that I will be able to actually admit it to the bar. So I go. But the experience that I have in the chambering, I tell you as a student, is a very valuable one. You have to start from scratch, from below. You really have to start. You cannot start with your mindset that I know everything, even though you finish your law school. You have to start with, okay, I'm here to learn. I remember on the first day when I attached with the law firm, I have to stay until 11 o'clock to finish submissions. I don't do the submission, but I do all the tagging for my master. How many copy for that? I can remember I stay until 11 o'clock to do all the tagging for my master. So I think you should start. You will appreciate all the little experience that you have. And when I joined the AG, I immediately was posted in prosecution department for 4 years. I really enjoy my life there for 4 years. I think I have an opportunity to actually do cases from magistrate court, session court, and before I left, I have one time appeared in High Court, and it bring me to a lot of places in Malaysia. I do have some cases in Penang, in Ipoh, Negeri Sembilan mostly, and I was posted to Kuching for 1 year doing the prosecution there, and I was posted to Ministry of MDTCC, the Consumer and KPDNKK. I can't remember the long name. You can Google it. So it's a semi criminals, but it's a criminal. So I remember I deal with this one case in Negeri Sembilan where it's actually a selling of control goods in one of the kilang, I mean the factories. So it was gangster, like you're so
I
scared.
see.
You are so
Wow.
you are new and you are dealing with a gangster case because all these mafia case related to all these businesses is really scary at the time. I have a lot of experience. We can chat about it next time.
Yeah.
How life as a DPP. But I remember on my first case, my boss sent me to Cheras. There's one mahkamah that I can't remember. So I was crying from that. I was crying after the case because I lost the case. Then I was crying and I go back to office. I was so scared that my boss will scold me. But you know what he said that actually stick to my mind. I'm so glad that I have that first lesson in the beginning of my career as a deputy public prosecutor. He said, I know the case gonna lose. I said, why you send me there? I'm this my first time. I'm alone in the court. And he said, I want you to understand. It's not about being a DPP. It's not about losing or winning. It's about presenting your evidence as much as you have. If you is winning or losing or winning is actually it's not your concern. It's concern of the judges to decide who's going to win the case. So that is my first lesson that I carry with me for the next 4 years in my career as a DPP. So during that time when I was a DPP, I also you have to also open yourself to possibility of learning. I agree with Miss Nisa that you have to constantly learning as a legal officer, wherever, private or public. Being a lawyer is actually learning. So when I was there, I learned with my senior about drafting, about making a legal opinion. Then I have a few experience how to actually develop a regulation for certain regulation in the ministry. So you really have to take opportunity while you are still young.
I see. Okay.
Yes. So after the being a DPP, so when I was in Sarawak, that is my last year being a DPP. At the time when I was transferred to Sarawak, I don't really have a lot of cases. So being super hectic in Semenanjung and suddenly you transfer to Sarawak, you don't really have a lot of cases. It really making me demotivated as a person. And at the time, I was really wanted to learn a lot. I really want to do a lot, but I was not. The environment doesn't really allow me. So there's a quote: if you don't like things, change the environment. It's not the thing. So I really at the time, but this is not a good advice for you guys. I resigned without any plan. So don't do that, especially in this uncertain time. If you really want to resign from a job, make sure that you have a backup plan. I'm very lucky at the time when I resigned. I think that I will go back to Sabah. I have a family. I don't have to worry about rent and everything. But I don't think that's a good advice. If I could, I will find a job before I resign. So when I resign, I come back to Sabah. Finally, I was doing my chambering with Cinti Gulam as well for 6 months. Before that, I also, because if you are in AG or even in federal government, remember I didn't finish my chambering, but I was given an exceptions to be called to the bar. So that is an exception. That's a benefit for you if you work with a government agency. So you can be given an exceptions for to be called to the bar. So I called to the bar in Malaya in 2013. So the plan is when I go back to Sabah, I should, call to Sabah bar. So I do my 6 month chambering. But again, it doesn't really resonate to my soul, become a lawyer in Sabah. And I don't know, I feel like I'm fulfilling someone else's dream. So I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it. So I was really, at the time, if you believe in God, I pray a lot, more than anything. I tell God that, you see, I'm not happy doing this thing. Really, please give me something. If not, I'm gonna go somewhere else. So at the time, I was so lucky. WWF is really looking someone who have a legal background. So a friend of mine who tell me that they want a legal background persons to do the job. So I was saying that only legal background, other things no. Yes, they said, but of course you need to be passionate about environment. So I took the job without any environmental background. Remember, I was a person who want to become a rich lawyer.
Islamic Bank.
That's materialistic. So, but I took the job with my open mind and maybe something a break from a legal world. But it's actually when I joined WWF, that's it. That's the history. I really like what I'm doing here. A lot of things that I'm doing actually a lot to do with law and policy, definitely. We will talk about that more. It's also about making an impact, changing the world. Changing the mindset of people about our environment. Malaysia is actually one of the 17 mega biodiversity country. We are also a lot of problem when it comes to our conservation or even environment. So I'm very glad that I'm still here. Maybe another few more years to come, be staying in WWF. You can ask me a lot of about question about the job if you want, but I think a note that I would like to actually share with you is that sometimes it's good to have that focus. It's you are very lucky if you have a focus. You want to be what, and you chat to that path. But if you are lost like me, that doesn't mean or excuse for you to slack in your life. You have to make or
Yep.
find an opportunity. Take every opportunity that you have to make it better. In a way, you really have to do something as if you're making an impact. You're making a difference in your life or in the life of others as well. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm ready for questions.
Okay. Yeah. That was a really nice life story. I think I find it really inspiring and interesting, especially for I guess a lot of students can relate being lost and trying to find their way where their purpose in the world is, where they should be. So we ended off at your introduction to WWF. I think a lot of students would really like to know about how is it like working with the WWF? Like what kind of things do you do there? Your roles, your responsibilities, your work.
Okay, first and foremost, I really want to share this because when I tell my parents, remember my parents want me to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
So when I tell my parents that I'm going to work with WWF, the first question that they ask me, are they paying you? Is it a charity or what?
NGO. Oh yeah, yeah.
They're
I
so
get.
worried that I don't have pay. To tell you, actually, a lot of NGO out there, not only WWF, we do have a structure of salary for people who are working with us, okay? Especially the international organization,
Mhm.
not only WWF, the UN, United Nations organization like UNDP, UNEP, Human Rights, all these organizations, they do have volunteers, but they do have staff working in the organization to make it running. So we do have a scale of salary that we go through, but definitely like any other organization or even like Miss Nisa was saying in AG state or even in the federal AG, you have to go through every year performance appraisal. So it will determine your pay rise or whatever. The only different about organization like us, you number one is that perhaps you cannot expect with my experience, with my background, it will be the same with lawyer outside there kind of salary, maybe a little bit different. Or you may have to expect that we don't have bonus because we are non-profit organization. So our pay is the pay. We don't have bonus like government. But there's a lot of things benefit in WWF. Like you can the learning opportunities like so wide. and an exposure to network. I've traveled around the world for the job itself for the past 8 years. So I've been to many countries in the world just by working in WWF, because the network that we have as a non-governmental organization. And of course, the flexibility, in government, the difference between governments, jobs, even law firms or in NGO is that the flexibilities we don't really rigid don't have a rigid system like governments have. We have a flexibility how we do our work. Like for example, you can work from home. We work from home even before pandemic. We have that flexibility already. So what I do in WWF actually, just WWF is really wide. My unit is very small in organization, just to advocate change. So what we do is actually to making sure that the international treaty, national policy, or even legislation about environment is being absorbed in the government decisions. Or we have to influence the government to see the decision, to make the decision to consider the environment, especially country like us, because our country is a mega biodiversity. So whatever the decision that you want to make in terms of economy, people, it need to be infused the environment consideration, because people are depending on environment, especially here in Sabah. So to making sure that the implementations, the environment protection is being taken care of, and of course to make sure that if there is an issue about environment, it will be debated openly, and is being informed. The people is being informed why certain decision was made. So I think that's kind of advocacy that I do. So, but of course, there's the details that the work that I do, because we do have funding from overseas, from international organization. Like for example, Ato were mentioning that I developed the sentencing guideline for wildlife crime. We don't have a sentencing guideline for wildlife crime. We have an environmental court, if you guys know, here in Malaysia. And that environmental court cannot just run as a environmental court like that, but it should be robust, and it should be effective for the judges to actually give sentence about the wildlife, considering what is their extent of protections, wildlife or even habitat for the wildlife. So that is the work that I do together with judiciary. I didn't do it on my own. I actually we WWF actually partner with the judiciary to develop this sentencing guideline for wildlife crime. And right now, we are developing a sentencing guideline for forest crime, because the wildlife crime is already being used by the judges, so that you have a consistent and coherent sentencing when you do with any crime on wildlife. For example, I developed the SOP for investigation and prosecution. That is taking my consideration of my experience as a DPP. So we want to make sure that the state government, when they do enforce the law, they have certain kind of policy, because they have like 8 branches of office.
Wow.
When you don't know how people implement the law, so it's good to have a SOP for them. So, of course, suggesting amendment of law related to environment. So I did actually work with the state AG, some of the
Oh,
officer there.
okay.
I think Puan Adriana, Brendan. So we talk about, right now we are talking about amending the Sabah Wildlife enactment, because we want to
Oh,
see certain issue, and we do want to actually amend the park enactment as well. So our law here in Sabah, we have a lot. Some of it's outdated, so we really have to go through it. It's a lot, but I think this is the role of NGO. We are not taking over the government job. We are complementing their work, and at the same time, we become the voice of the people as well.
I
I
see.
hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, that was more than answered it actually. I think because well, NGO, well, a lot of people will initially think it's like a freelancing work. They don't really get as much pay, like you said. Yep, because it's a joke that law students would always bring up among themselves, lah. But I think it's a really good, a very noble endeavor to advocate for change. For I think it's a good. A lot of students start off with the vision of trying to help and make a change to the world. So I think if you have a piece of advice for students who want to pursue this type of NGOs, like environmental laws, environmental change, what tips would you give them? What should they have in their belts to get them prepared for this kind of work, this line of work?
Um, I think firstly, finish all the things that you need to do. The basic thing being a law student. I mean, you have to
Mm.
go for chambering, do that, you know. If not, you will have a slight regret. I don't have that. I overcome that regret after 11 years of working because there's a lot of people who are asking me, are you not going to take your bar, sababa?
Uh,
I think if you asked me 5 years ago, am hesitant to say that. Oh, maybe I should do that. But right now, at this point, I think there's no regret. I think I let that go. I move on. It's not that it's interesting, but I decided that I don't think it's the life that I want. So why should I do it, right? So if
mhm, mhm.
I have like a lot of things to focus as well. So I think if you can, if you may, just finish all this thing, the chambering and experience that. And if you still don't know what to do, do the litigation first, because the experience in litigation is actually going to help you a lot. Not just your personality, to bring out your personality, the best of you, but also how the thinking system, I
Mm.
think a lot of the
Yep.
time when I have a problem in the work, trying to make sense of
Mhm.
certain concept, I think you can grasp that by exercising it through litigations. And also when you will gain confidence talking with people when you are in court, regardless. So
I
if you
see.
really want to become like working in an NGO, make sure that it's something that you really want to do. I think all of us, in 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 some point of our life, we are activists. We are activists of something, even a small thing. A lot of us, as a law student, I can observe people who with law degree, they really want to change something, they want to fix something that is not right. So pick something that you really have passion about, that you think that you don't have a problem going waking up in the morning to talk about it with people. And you have to be really passionate about it, and decide you want to do it, and just find an organization to work on that particular issue. If not, if you don't find any organization, make an organization. So I'm a believer of knocking the door or making a door, because I don't believe people have to wait and just do something for the sake of doing it. I think you should do it because you're really passionate about it. Because at the end of the day, when life really get hard, when it doesn't make sense at all,
Oh,
one thing that will never betray you is your effort, your work hard, your passions. This is the thing that will stick with you, that will actually motivate you to live your day. As important is it to be called as a lawyer? Like also have a stigma in my family, like, okay, you're not a lawyer anymore, something like that. So
oh,
I'm like telling my some of my family was saying, we send you to school, we hope that you can help people become a lawyer and all that. So I think another thing that I realized is that as much as important to become a lawyer or someone or DPP or whatever it is, you in life is more important. You as a person. If you become a lawyer but you are doing crappy job, you hate about it, every day you complain about it, it doesn't make sense anywhere, right? So I think you have the choice, so you have to make that decision.
yeah.
And don't be afraid of the opportunity outside.
I see. Yep. Passion and a lot of principles to bring with you. I think since the bell is rung, we can ask one more question, but I think I'll let Joshua ask this one.
Um, uh, I mean, for everyone's information, I did work with an NGO before, but it's with Forever Sabah. So I know I've worked with Mr. Harry. He was the international lawyer. I think, yeah, I worked with him for at least a month. I think 2 months, and throughout that internship, I met with Mr. Roger. So that's how we get acquainted with. And but a bit of sharing for all of the students here. I think it's like what Miss Sheila said. If you don't have like an avenue or a group that you would want to like we want to have a voice for, I think you can actually start. I think as a young people, we have the energy and time to start doing so. And and a bit of experience when I was doing my environmental sorry my internship with an NGO work before. It's more towards to doing legal research, especially environmental issues in Sabah, because if when it comes to law resources for environmental matters, there's not so much you can do, and I think Miss Sheila can testify on this. There's not so much on resources on law for environmental law in Sabah itself. So yeah, that's a bit of a sharing on my side. But for Miss Sheila, for lawyer, for civil litigation, politics, and activism, all require a higher degree of teamwork, and this has significant ties to the working culture. Um, do you have any advice for students choosing into this type of work field if they want to in the future?
I think any job, whether you are in private law firm or even in the government or even in NGO, you really have to work in a team. I don't know so much about, perhaps not in law firm, but maybe yes also, because you need the whole rangers. I mean the whole mechanics of people in law firm. But I think the best attitude that you have to have first is actually to have an open mind and to be flexible. The most constant thing in this world today is actually change. So sometimes you don't know it, you actually find out that you don't like it. So what are you going to do it? Whether you're going to stick or you're going to be flexible about it. So you have to be to have that agility, open mind that there's a lot of opportunity outside. And of course you have to start with humble. you know I've seen a lot of young student as well. I mean, when I started my career in DPP, some of them are very arrogant, just because you are study law and you are, so maybe you think that you are better than anybody who don't study law. But I think you need to start with humbleness, because with that you will be able to actually open your mind and ask questions that relevant. Because when you have assumptions, a lot of assumptions in your head, you will not be able to actually let the new light come in. So that is the most important as a legal practitioner, because legal issue is constantly changing. It's a lot. Every day is new. In Sabah alone, we have a lot of issue about land, this, and we have 9 schedule, right, in our constitution. 9 schedule
Mhm.
divided all these state list, federal list. So I think we have a lot of issue here in Sabah. So we have to be ready to embrace that change. I think going forward, I would like to have a law school here in Sabah for Borneo, because
Yeah.
the law that we have here in Sabah, like a lot. So when I study in public uni, we only touch a few things. I feel so unfair, because I'm part of the country as well. So a lot of law there, I should learn about it as well. So I think we should have that law school here in Borneo for Sabah and Sarawak. That's just a suggestion in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, that was perfect. We would
Yeah.
actually love to ask more questions, but we kind of reached the end of the discussion. But not to worry. You guys can ask your own personal questions at the Q&A tab. We have a Q&A session right after the panel discussion. So feel free to ask the questions, especially to Miss Khairunisa and Miss Sheelasheena. So now that thank you, Miss Sheila, for your wonderful sharing. So now we'll be having a short break for everyone to kind of catch their breaths and absorb everything. The audience can actually take this time to maybe think up of some questions or maybe go for a toilet break. And we'll come back at about 4:22 sharp. And yeah, you can go for your short break for the moment. See you guys then. Okay, welcome back everyone. I'll give a little bit more time for the other participants to, the other attendees to come back. So I hope everyone's been enjoying the webinar so far. We had quite a bit of insight from Miss Khairunisa and Miss Sheila, the very wonderful sharing from both of them. I hope you guys enjoying it so far. We're gonna move on to our two other panelists, and yeah, we're going to be pretty excited for these last two panelists. So the third panelist that we're going to have today is Miss Amanda Allus. So Miss Amanda is an executive member of HSBC Amana and is the program director of HSBC Amana, leading a team that looks into the transition of the HSBC Amana into becoming the first sustainable entity of HSBC Group. Miss Amanda graduated with an LLB and a master's in from the University of Hertfordshire in the UK. And in addition to obtaining various certifications throughout her banking career, which, just to name a few, includes the Sustainable Leadership and Corporate Responsibility Certificate from the London Business School. And additionally, besides that, the certificate, she also received the FinTech certificate from Harvard Business School. So Ms. Amanda believes in championing for sustainable growth and development, and she makes sure that her role in bank keeps her at that pace to ensure that she keeps, in addition to that, to ensure that she keeps to her root in Sabah. She also do as much as she can to help out by being a central committee member of the KDCA Youth Council. Miss Amanda, glad to have you with us. How are you, Miss Amanda?
Hello, how are you guys? Really excited. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And of course, before I start, I just want to thank all the GUNS team for making sure all the tech is working. And also, of course, Josh, the president of GUNS, I'm extremely honored to be part of the session that has all the estimate and more learned panelists together. I've heard a lot, Miss Nisa, Miss Sheila. I think you guys actually draw me back to law. That's very inspiring what you guys have shared, and I hope somewhat now I'm able to just probably for the next 10 minutes just allow me to somewhat contribute to the topic of today. But before that, I probably just in addition to what has already been introduced about me, maybe just a little bit of my background. I've been in the bank, HSBC Amana, which is the Islamic subsidiary bank for HSBC Malaysia for almost 5 years now. And it's been a very rewarding journey, I would say. But going back to the topic, like many of you, I think I was drawn to law through a combination of factors, actually. Number one is I actually wanted to make a difference. And like Miss Sheila basically already summed up a lot of things that we as a law students, formerly law students, we want to do a lot of things. Regardless of whether you really got into law because you really want to do it or you don't want to do it, or because you have parental expectations like I do. So that's another factor. My parents really wanted me to do law as well. It's either doctor, engineer, or law. So I took the road less hard, I suppose, from my opinion. And of course, I wanted to support for a greater cause and justice. So this three combination of factors is actually what really lured me into doing law. And I thought, you know, I would look to complete the whole spectrum of doing law, do the law degree, masters, finish the practice, and then get a job at law firm, and then just done with. But then when I moved to KL in the pursuit of whatever, I think there's just something greater than that. So when I moved to KL, it was a little tricky to actually nail down a full-time employment while you basically try to finish your law studies, and especially one that helps to pay bills, and in addition helps to pay your flight tickets to go back as often as I would like to. So just out of curiosity and out of practicality, I started to look at some other industries, and I found out that actually our skills are very deployable, and law students, law graduates are actually very in demand. So just to fast forward a little, I applied for a role at HSBC, and I managed to get into the assessment center. And then there, I recalled I was surrounded by people from different backgrounds, people from accounting, finance, economics, and it was really a daunting experience. But looking back, I think I stood out because I was different, and I stood out because I had a different skill set, and that is thanks to the legal educations that I had, that I've obtained over the years. So I eventually joined HSBC Islamic Bank. That's a function of, because in Islamic Bank, it had more of a social purpose, and the values that is being practiced at an Islamic bank is it basically resonates with my own personal values. And you know, if you remember the justice, the doing, the crusade thing. So those are just basically those things that really lured me also into joining an Islamic bank as opposed to a conventional bank. I have to admit, at first when I started the journey, I felt like walking into the unknown. But I started to realize how transferable, deployable legal skills are, especially in the banking area. So just to share with you a personal experience, when I first joined, I rotated into the more prestigious part of the bank, I'd say. It's the investment banking area, particularly looking at debt capital market. So the debt capital market, technically, this is part of the bank where we help to raise funding for our high profile customers from the capital markets, whether it's locally in Malaysia or even raising funding from cross-border transactions. So this is where I was put in when I first started. And then I found out the reason why I was put into the capital market was because of my legal skills. And as it turned out, actually, most of the work that is being done at the debt capital market, everyone wants to go in there. But most of the things that people really are doing in the debt capital market, I sum it up is actually more of a transactional management where it actually relates to legal documentations and also conforming to the different regulations that are involved. So just to give you a flavor, the banking industry is a highly regulated industry. It's a highly regulated industry where we're being regulated by Central Bank of Malaysia under the purview of Ministry of Finance and also Securities Commission of Malaysia that looks at regulating the capital market. So that's why I was put in there. Now, I was then, from my experience in my tenure into that capital market area, I was asked to take on the world first United Nation Sustainable Development Goal Islamic bond or Sukuk, and again, I was called because of my legal skills. I was asked to set up this governance process for the issuance that we're about to do. So it's the world's first. So no one's done it before. So I was asked to set up the governance process, and obviously my legal drafting helps a lot. So it helps me to make some robust and also well thought kind of development plan. So in 2018, we ended up issuing that a 500 million UNSDG Sukuk. It was supported then by UNDP out of New York. Um, the reason I actually wanted to share this experience is also to explain how the banking industry is also changing, and the importance of these changes that are happening. Now, Miss Sheena already mentioned a lot about how the WWF actually work with government to influence policy changes, because it helps to secure and helps to protect environment. And a lot of that work not only are being done by the likes of WWF or UNDP, UNGC, UNEP, and most of the UN bodies. Banks are also starting to look at this development. Banks are also starting to work together with government, work together with relevant stakeholders externally, just to achieve the same objective, to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, for all of you out there that don't know what the UN SDG is, it's basically a blueprint to address global issues relating to poverty, relating to climate change, environmental issues, inequality. So they have 17 goals. So a lot of different key players, cross industries, not only legal industries, but also other industries are actually looking at this. And so that's just me trying to illustrate to you how banking are now changing. Just to illustrate this again, a lot of pressure currently is coming in from the regulators, central banks, Securities Commission, and it's asking banks to change the nature of capital, to change banking appetite, not just to look at how we're making revenues or returns for shareholders, but also looking at how we change our banking practices to give, to positively impact not just environment, but also the communities within which we operate within. So this area in the bank is actually called the sustainable finance. And it's something that I'm actually working on, and I'm passionately working on this one as well. So in terms of other applicability of law in other areas, I can go on that one, but I just also want to touch on a little bit about some glaring realities that I see looking from outside of a window of a legal sector, and looking into the different applicability of law in other areas. So for example, in the bank, we would typically negotiate fees with external legal counsels. And then I realized, this one time I realized actually they were actually small fees compared to the fees that banks actually charge for our services. And of course, out of curiosity, I inquired why, and the simple answer was, it's because there are a lot of lawyers out there, and that the legal work is now being commoditized. And in addition, I'm also starting to see that the development and the development of the legal sector. Now, I can't say for sure how it works in in the government law and all this, the government law practice and all this, but certainly from a corporate related sectors, I see there are internationally plans that were being made to digitize through blockchain and also other method that are for legal work, and of course, like I said, corporate related. So in technical terms, you call this disruptions. So not only does banking industry is facing disruptions, but also the legal industries are facing disruptions. So I say all of this not to put all of you off from pursuing law. I think all of you and myself as well, I really love law. We love law. So please just don't interpret this as me saying things just to put you off. I just really want to be very front with all of you here, and just to share my experience that you need to diversify your skills. Legal skills is important, but it's also important that you diversify your skills into other areas. You pursue law passionately, yes, but sometimes at times you need to put your heads up and look at what are the things that are changing, and from time to time do supplement your law skills with other skills, get acquainted with technology and the role that it will play moving forward, and also get familiar with data privacy, cybersecurity law, and other data related um, areas. Maybe this means you also need to do some courses on data science just to supplement your understanding, and then you can also take other courses just to plug a gap for looking into other opportunities in other industries. Of course, for banking and finance, I can say for sure that there are a lot, multiple varied courses out there, on-site, off-site, online. Um, and then for other areas like consultancy as well, you probably want to supplement marketing skills together with your financial skills. Um, in other areas like uh, probably management skills as well would be good. But I would say whatever industries that you actually get into, your I don't know about other people here, I don't know about other students, but because I was studying law throughout, I kind of overlooked my PowerPoint and also my Excel skills, so I got really terrible. But then when I joined the bank, and then I started to look at different skills that I need to adapt to. So versatility is very important. I started to learn all this, doing PowerPoint, Excel sheets and stuff like that. So that was if there's one thing I really want to tell everyone here, is that you have the time now, and you will not have the time again. So it is this time that you try to maximize everything so that you can lead the legal industry. Whatever that you do, you can lead the legal industry into the future. You just need to make yourself fit for the future. um, so that's it. I hope I do help with a little bit of my experience.
Yep. So thank you very much, Miss Amanda. That's very blunt, but I think for law students, we have to take things bluntly now. There's no sugarcoating for the things that are going to come to us. Yep. So you've mentioned that you've been invited, been taken into the bank for your legal skills. And I noticed a lot of the legal work, including what Miss Sheila shared about the NGOs, it has a lot to do with drafting work. So maybe can you explain a bit of the process about how the legal drafting is like for the banks and in the banking side of things?
Well, I mean, it depends. So just to give a context about how the banking industry or typically the bank works. So you have the front line, the middle line, and also the back office. So the front line obviously are the people that does the sales, or what we call the relationship managers. The middle office are the people that does the product development, also strategy, business development, like myself. And then you have the support function, which is the legal department, the regulatory compliance, the people that looks at the risk, credit assessment, risk, and all this. So the legal drafting, in my experience, that when we don't really, unless you are in the legal department, you don't really legal draft things. But what you do is you have to take a bulk of the documents that is presented before you, and having the legal skills, then you can then look at that documents and speak to your legal departments and have them ascertain whatever understanding that you have. Now, I like what Ms. Nisa mentioned just now about the role of legal officers. She said the role of legal officers is actually to assist courts to look into issues. Now, the role of us, people with legal background in the bank, our role, especially in the capital market, is basically to look at legal documentations, terms for our clients, identify issue, and create and develop solutions for them. So legal services, banking services, basically we're providing service, but just for different people, right? So that's how I would interpret legal drafting, other legal skills. Obviously, your negotiation skills need to be on point. In my line of work, I basically work with a lot of third parties. So the
A lot of
communication
talking,
skills, a lot of talking,
Oh,
influencing decisions. So that really comes to handy.
right. Okay, that's really interesting. You mentioned that it's actually you have a master's in international law as well. Yep. Did it come useful for your banking work, or like how does it apply there?
Again, if I may be just blunt,
Mhm.
I really, really, really wanted to be I just really wanted to join the UN. I had this great, great, an idea of what my life would be. Like drop everything and go to Haiti and just devote myself to it, right? But and then until you hit that 23, 4, 25, then your parents start like, you kind of need to get into the reality. But I won't say that it doesn't help me. It doesn't help me at all. I always feel that whatever I've learned in my legal education, it may not be theoretical, but in practical sense, it helps.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's kind of true. Actually, all of us kind of start off somewhere like similarly. You mentioned about the that you worked on sustainability finance, and there's a lot of legal work that is involved in this area. Do you mind sharing with us some of the things that's over there? Maybe your top picks, I guess.
The top pick. Okay, number one, in sustainable finance. So let's just I use the word sustainable finance loosely with sustainability because not a lot of awareness are really actually out there in terms of the difference there is. But actually, sustainable finance is making sure the financing that we give to our customers actually adhere to the three principles of making sure positive impact towards environment, also the communities, also making sure that we prosper in terms of profit. But just a specific one, but if it's more like looking, okay, so when we give out financing, we have to understand what kind of financing that we give out, whether we give out a financing to a sector that contravenes whatever applicable legislations out there, especially when you speak about environmental law, which I'm sure Michela would be much more
Yeah,
versed than I do
I'm
in
sure.
this area. But those are the kind of things that we look at. So from a risk assessment perspective, a lot of the things that we take into considerations have to be existing legislations, existing regulations, policies
Mhm.
that inhibit us from just giving out whatever financing that we have. We've seen how, I'm not quite sure if a lot of familiar with the financial crisis that happened in 2008. A lot of
Yep.
those things are because we contravene whatever law that is available or that we tweak them. Now, it's a matter of whether, I guess we will be answering this maybe in a more in a more robust manner later. But a lot of the perception about law out there is actually vastly different from what us as a legal students actually have. And I think being in my role, I was able to just bridge that different perceptions.
Mhm.
People from the commercial angle and also people from legal background. So that certainly became very helpful for me.
All right. Just to change things up a bit and shift gears, and bringing this back to legal education, since a lot of the subjects in law schools, they don't really teach you about finance or banking. I mean, there's like specific courses for that, but not much for law. So how did you adapt to this when you go into banking? How did you overcome this gap?
Oh wow, that's a very good question. are you guys familiar with the Dummies book series?
Oh, no,
The yellow one.
did it
with
actually work?
Oh, trust me, they actually do work.
Oh,
I look at those, desperate measures call for
yeah.
desperate effort, whatever. So
Mhm.
I was so desperate in wanting to know this and that and this and that and this and that. But because even in the corporate world, it's ever changing and everyone is just so fast. And I was in an investment bank,
Uh-huh.
placed in an investment bank, and that is more cutthroat than you would
Mm.
initially thought.
Oh, yep.
So, but so I did. I meant that as a joke, but also as a reality that I
Mhm.
actually took. But on a more serious note, I actually prepared a development plan, and that development plan include making sure that I get exposure from a job experience perspective. I get exposure from training. So there's a lot of pre-MBA courses out there. Like I realized that things like accounting, finance, and economics, you don't need a degree as a primer to learn them.
I see.
One thing that I really, really like what Miss Sheila also said, that you need to be very open-minded. And number one thing also is humility. And I echo whatever she said. You need to be humble enough to want to absorb everything, because you think you know things, but you actually don't know. It's just that. Having the heart to learn. That's how I navigate myself.
Yep, it's like a continuous process, I guess. From when you finish as law school to when you're working, you're continuously working, continuously learning, adapting to the changes in the world, especially. So I think a lot of students, I think some of the students watching here would be kind of interested to work in your line of work in the banks. What do you think, if you have an advice for them, like what skills and personalities or what to expect when they get into this line of job, what would it be?
Um, Never forget your legal drafting skills.
Oh,
Number one,
yep,
never
that
forget that,
seems to be the
please.
case.
Um, your legal writing, not just the drafting, the agreements and stuff, but the legal writing. Your contract law, never forget that. Um, your trust law, very important. In capital market, trust law is very
Mhm.
also very important. Um, I'd say outside of the legal skills, that you absolutely can keep that, because that gives you competitive advantage. Outside of that, I think you should also have a good analytical skills, which I think law students should not have any problem with that, because when you're presented with many different documents, all you need to do is analyze them and then crunch them to make it a data that is presentable to your stakeholders. That is very important. Being able to have that kind of innovative skills, also very important. I'd say people like me in my line of work, where strategy planning is what I do. Project management skills is important. I think a lot of the younger generations now, not that I'm that not young, but
uh,
but
yep.
a lot of the younger generations now probably would have a better grasp in terms of the different tools, resources out there just to execute something. And guns is actually one of them. Very good initiative. Um, and then of course, those are all the technical skills I'd say that you would have. You also need the soft skills. Soft skills include things like language. English
Yep.
is very important, but if you can supplement your existing language, master another language, that would be very, very good as well. Um, your communication skills is very important. Time management, teamwork and all this. Most importantly is, I think, what really differentiates the law students with others that I do see from my own personal experience, is the fact that we were taught to take accountability. Responsibility is something that's imparted in
Yep.
us. So
Interesting.
that is technically like, you know, your leadership traits. You sum it up into a leadership traits, right? So your leadership traits is very important. In terms of leadership traits, they're all just sum up to being accountable, being responsible of what you have, owning something, and making sure that you see it through. So that is just some of the things that I think would be really good. And of course, your persuasion skills also will help you in some ways.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep, English and language actually is kind of key thing to being a lawyer, especially in law students as well. Like all the assignments and all the things that we do requires a lot of language skills. So you've mentioned that you've been involved with a lot of legal drafting in the bank. How often do you deal with things such as insurance or insolvency cases, like from businesses or other or people?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, actually in the bank we have a legal department, and also we have different businesses in the bank. So in the banking, so it's mostly insurance for us. We don't actually do insurance. Well, we
Yeah.
did before, but then we just don't have them anymore.
Right.
So that I wouldn't be able to comment on that one. But from my experience of working in the bank, most of the legal drafting, like I mentioned, I wouldn't have to do it. I would look at the legal drafting, make sure that the terms are comfortable and that I agree with the terms. And if I don't, and if I pick up issues, I will then take it to my legal departments who will then legal draft it, amend them, and make sure that they fit to whatever is expected from either the businesses or from my side. And then we'll just agree it with whoever that was supposed to agree with. So I'm not saying that you have to develop a legal draft from scratch. I'm saying that you are able to understand the language of the legal department to make sure that you are able to work your way through, right? So that's how it is. So I just want to make it clear to
Yep.
everybody that
Okay.
we don't do legal drafting. We have a set people who are
I see.
actually doing the legal drafting in the legal
Apologies from
department.
my
Yeah.
side. Yep.
No
Okay.
worries, no worries.
Different sectors, different parts of the
Yes.
departments. Okay. So it seems that you have quite a lot of things like sorted out from the beginning. Like you knew what you're going to go for, what to kind of expect. Is there anything that came up that was kind of unexpected that maybe something you can tell the students to foresee when they want to get into this kind of business or this kind of work?
Okay. The debt capital market was something that I did not expect. Getting into investment banking was not something that I expect. You know, I thought banking was something when I first started banking, even before when I started banking, I don't know what banking is. I didn't know what it is. I thought it was just, filled with people with capitalist minded that doesn't care about anything but returns and profit.
Yeah.
That it is a male centric dominated sectors, that everyone is just accountant, finance, business, economics. But man, I was really wrong about it, because the nature of banking itself is changing, and a lot of actually I can say a lot of my colleagues are actually law graduates, and they're actually flourishing in the banking sector where I work as well. So those are just, you have to expect the unexpected. You will be thrown into situations where it's fairly very uncomfortable for you. And I was thrown into something very uncomfortable for me, but as long as you learn to breathe, take a step back, you will know and you will realize that whatever you've learned in law school actually can help you.
I
But
see.
only start with humility and the willingness to learn and actually want to ask and be sincere, because whatever you do, if you have the passion will drives your purpose, and purpose will deliver progress.
Mhm. So that's really good tips for us to take note, actually, for especially all of the students watching. Yep. I guess since we're kind of running out of time, we guess we can take one more question. So you mentioned when you first got interviewed or when you went into the assessment thing, how did you manage to make yourself stand out among all the other people? Like, any tips for us that we should get that we can make ourselves stand out too?
um I'm not sure if this is a good advice or not, but I don't know why. Actually, law students have this thing. They fake it till they make it. They're
Take it to them.
exceptionally nervous, exceptionally don't know, but they just fake it till they make it. And I think maybe the public speaking skills that was you develop over the time actually help.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say just make sure you be you, but be a better you. Sorry,
Yes,
there's a lot of things going on.
yeah, I get what you mean. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. That's a really good thing. So I guess that's all the questions for me. I don't think. Yeah, that's the bell. All right. So thank you, Miss Amanda, for your very wonderful sharing. It was really interesting, very nice to know. And I'm sure a lot of the students will have questions personal questions to you as well. We can address them during the Q&A session later. So
Right.
thank you, Ms.
Thank
Amanda.
you.
Right. So, right. Last but not least, Mr. Roger Chin. Okay, Mr. Roger Chin, for everyone listening in, Mr. Roger Chin has inspired generations of lawyers and law students alike by being the president of the Sabah Law Society. He has helped the lives of many businesses and entrepreneurships through his position as a registered patent, trademark, and industrial design agent. Hence, he is very active in the civil litigation arena and legal field of intellectual property. So the Law Society aside, Mr. Rochin is a partner in Chin Lau Wong and partner in Sabah. His other achievements include being a barrister and a solicitor of the Supreme Court of Victoria in Australia. In the same region as well, he has graduated with an LLB and BCom from the University of Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. So, Mr. Roger, it's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. So sorry you have to kind of wait so long to your turn, but I hope you've enjoyed the webinar so far. So, hello, Mr. Roger, how are you?
Good, thank you, Arthur. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I know when Joshua approached me, oh gosh, when was that? They said they've been in this room. But anyway, yes, they have been. Yes.
Yeah.
But when they first came to talk to me about your guns, I thought it was a fantastic idea. And I've seen how confused a lot of law students in West Malaysia are. They have no idea about what they're meant to be doing. There's very little information, and I don't think the universities are helping very much. Therefore, when he said that he wanted to start something like this in West Malaysia for law students, Sabah law students there, I told him, I said, definitely SLS would support that. And we have, because Registrar of Societies wrote to us and said, do we have any objections to your name? And we said, no, not at all. So you should have no problems in registering. For some reason, we have first dibs on Sabah law, so anything related to law and Sabah. Yeah, we said no problem. So looking forward to you guys actually finally getting registered. And again, offer from SLS is always there if you need help. Okay, I finally realized why I'm here. I'm here because I'm the only flag bearer of a person who's actually practicing at the moment. All of the other panelists are no longer practicing. They're somewhere else. So I had, as Arthur was saying, I got admitted into Australia. Not only did I get admitted into Australia, I actually was there for a very long time. I was doing my high school in Australia. I left Sabah at 12 years old, and I was there for a good 12 years. So I did my high schooling there, I did my university there, and I actually also worked in Australia as a lawyer before I came back. I think all of these things definitely contributed a lot to who I am today. And very much so in the sense of where I am going and where I was. So I did commerce law. Until today, I think everyone, given the chance, should always pair their law degree with something else, if possible. You will not regret it. I think the best lawyers are the ones who have had something. Some of you may have come from Chongjin. Chongjin is a unique school in the sense that they tell you you should do something when you're doing your A levels. They encourage you to do things like your LCCI and these sort of things. Believe you me, do it, do it, do it. Because when you are practicing, you will see a lot of things to do with accounts. And if you did not even bother, you would not understand anything. So I was fortunate enough to do commerce and law, and I majored in economics. And because of that, it has helped me to no end. It allowed me to understand businesses a lot better, understand the economy, and therefore how businesses operate in them. And that is something that I find a lot of new lawyers coming up lack. They just did straight law with very little exposure anywhere else. And you'd be amazed if I told you they did not even know about how to write a check, how to bank in a check, these sort of things. Uh, it just doesn't exist. I'm not sure why, but we have people coming in now who do not understand anything at all about businesses, about reality, about the world. Okay, and this will be something that will put you far behind a lot of other lawyers. So if I can suggest to anyone who wants to be a lawyer, please pair it up with something. If you have the opportunity, do LCCI and make your subjects that you do as varied as possible. I think a lot of the times we think, oh, I've got to do commercial law, I've got to do things, banking perhaps, and they sort of go together. Yes, they do, but if you do that, what you'll find is that you're missing out on a lot of different areas. For example, when I was going through uni, I thought I'd like to do intellectual property. Okay, doing intellectual property now, it's starting to be something that a lot of people want to do, but when I was doing it, very few people did it. Intellectual property, I did subjects like law and sexuality, right? I mean, who would do a subject like law and sexuality? Okay, but what did I learn from law and sexuality? I learned that the law is very biased. I learned that the law is very chauvinistically male, and I learned that it is not very good for the minorities. Okay, whether you talk about same sex and so on and so forth. All right. So I learned about that in law and sexuality. At the time when this was a brand new thing, I did subjects like computer assisted legal research. That was a new area when I did that. No one did that. Now, of course, you have it all. But what I'm trying to say is I did areas of law that no one thought would be useful to them, or if they thought it was useful to them, it's a waste of time because I should be doing commercial law, banking law, these sort of areas. But I did it. I followed a road that was far less traveled. And because of that, I'd like to think I've managed to have a lot of experiences which other lawyers, I just look around the lawyers around me and think, what have they gone through and what have they seen? I certainly have had the opportunities to do a lot. So for example, I've because of the areas that I've chosen, I have lived in Tokyo for 2 months because of intellectual property. And that is an experience that, of course, will be something that shapes a lot of your character. So yes, I was living in Tokyo for 2 months and I've experienced everything that Tokyo has to offer. That's one thing I managed to do because of intellectual property. It was a fully funded program by the Japanese government to go to Japan and learn intellectual property. So I did that courtesy of because I did IP law. The other thing that I've managed to do is also, Dr. Brendan has been on the same program, is IVLP, which is the International Visitors Leadership Program, which is a program that it's the American government's #1 scholarship program, where exchange program, not scholarship, exchange program, where people like Tun Mahathir has been on it, people like Tony Blair have been on it, lots of other people from around the world, where they bring you to America, fully funded again, and they will show you different parts of America, and you get to stay there for a month. You go to Washington, you go to New York. I think Dr. Brendan was in Seattle. I was in Los Angeles, and you're there for a month. These are all opportunities which I believe were available because I knew where to look, and I knew what because of the choices I made um, in university, the subjects I took. It allowed me to network with people in very different from perhaps your traditional banking lawyers and your traditional criminal law lawyers or civil litigation lawyers. Most of them, I would say, do not have the opportunity to see most of these things. So as far as possible, please do vary your subjects. Now, for all of you who have left the law or are in other parts of the law, let me say one thing. I also ran away from law for a very long time. It was the last thing I actually wanted to do. The reason why I did commerce law was because I was fascinated with economics. My high school teacher made me love economics, and economics was an area that I adored, and I thought I wanted to carry on. However, I knew I had to pair it up with something more substantial. As an economist, what am I going to do? End up in IMF, perhaps in UN, perhaps, but then not much avenue, perhaps even a bank. But yeah, not much avenue there. So I thought I'll pair it up with law. And because of that, when I was still in uni, there are only two things I've always wanted to do. One was be a management consultant, and one was to be a lawyer. Okay, I've done both, by the way. So when I was in uni, I was hired by Accenture. Those of you who know management consulting world, you will know that Accenture is one of the better consulting firms. I think there's not many firms above Accenture except for perhaps McKinsey and Co. Okay, and I wish I got into McKinsey and Co. I was nearly there. I missed out by a little bit, but anyway, I did Accenture, and then after being in Accenture for a while, I came back to law. I ran away from law as long as I could, but for some strange reason, I came back to law. But when I look at it and I analyze it, I realize one thing: why I like law. Imagine this: for Sheila, your parents wanted you to be a lawyer. Okay, I dare say for even Amanda and Nisa, your parents wanted you to be a lawyer. There is a reason, by the way. Okay, it's not because they think it sounds nice to be a lawyer. The reason is very simple, and I've realized this as I've gone along in the profession. It is because it is a very highly respected profession. Okay, this is not denigrating any other professions. Okay, WWF does wonderful work, HSBC does, and SAGC. But being a lawyer is a very noble profession. Imagine that I have had people giving the firm $300 million. All right, $300 million. I've never met these people before, by the way. Okay, you have someone from Korea who appoints you as a lawyer who has never seen you at all. All right, but by virtue of being a lawyer, that law firm believes in you, and therefore will run 300 million through your law firm for me to give it back to him, of course, right? But in what other profession, let me ask you, besides the banks, right, would any sane person give you $300 million? I think most other people would have run away with the money. 300 million is sufficient to run away. 3 million is a bit too little. 300 million is a lot of money. But you would be tempted. But as lawyers, people trust you. And this is only a very small portion of why they hold you in so high esteem. And also, we actually do make differences in people's lives. When we fight things in court, things that are not constitutional, we try to make it constitutional, we change the law, all these sort of things. This was a difference between Accenture and the law. In Accenture, I was making no difference to the world. I was making a difference to a corporation's bottom line, but I was making no difference to the world. Whereas as a lawyer, if I'm fearless enough and I want to take up something and I'm passionate about something enough, I will be able to change the world. Okay. In Accenture, honestly, I would have made my client very happy, and that is about all. All right. So at the end of the day, what made me very what I realized is, yes, the law can be very rewarding in that sense. Okay, rewarding because I can make a difference versus in another area where I'm not sure how much difference am I making. I'm talking about globally to people, um, and I honestly don't think a lot of other professions you will have that much of an impact on the world. So I'd like to leave a footprint on this world that people can see later on in life, rather than just passing through the world, passing through my life and leaving nothing behind. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And until today, I'd like to think there are footprints left behind. Just like people like my predecessor, Dr. Brendan, has left footprints behind, I'd like to think I will leave footprints behind as well. And that's why I am here and trying to build SLS into something that everyone can be proud of, and trying to expand the market, because never doubt, Sabahans can do it. There's one thing that unites every single person in this webinar and every speaker is, we're all Sabahans, all right? Never let anyone tell you that you are not somehow, or make you feel you are not up to scratch just because you're Sabahan, okay? And they will make you feel that way, by the way, all right? Many, many times. When they ignore you, they don't invite you to meetings, they don't even know you exist for that matter, right? Many times over, stand up, be counted, and tell them, I am a Malaysian and I will make a difference. But please make sure that you do good work. All right. So one thing that unites all of us in this room is we certainly can make a difference, and I look forward to working with all of you to hopefully achieve that. I heard bells, Arthur, so I think maybe I'm at the end. Yeah. 15
No,
minutes.
actually,
Okay.
we still
I've
have
got
a lot
15.
of time. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of the attendees have a lot of questions on the SLS side.
Sure.
So I'm going to focus on a more personal side, personal questions. Yep. So you advise the students on diversifying their subjects in what they learn. And
Hmm.
interestingly, you studied niche areas of law, well, niche areas then, intellectual property, law and morality. And personally, I really like law and sexuality. It's how the law is biased and how it's not objective and all. But any particular reason why you decided to learn these areas and then pursue your current career?
I've always believed that the more you know, the more you learn, you will be a better all-rounder. Rather than be a very good specialist in one thing. For myself, I'd rather be know a lot more and be able to help a lot more people in different areas rather than just one single area.
I see. So what about going into trademark and industrial design? Is it something you've always wanted to do or something that came up along the way?
I've always been fascinated with technology, gadgets, computers. I even in primary schools when computers were there, I mean during the days when programming was not even something people talked about. I was already doing programming, learning about it. trying to understand it. And now programming is going to be taught in schools in like China and America. And I was doing that way before it was even a thing. And because of that, IP is all of this, right? Okay, branding, technology, patents. What do you protect? Patents protects what? How do I protect what is in my mind? This is definitely an area which Sabah is lacking. So I would encourage a lot of you, if you can, do intellectual property and help it grow. Now, when you do it, you may think to yourself, oh, when I come back to Sabah, there's not much work. Yes, perhaps. But if you think like that, then you're focusing on the wrong thing, because you should be building it rather than thinking, oh, is there a lot of money for me to make in this big area of law, or can I help Sabah grow this little small area and hopefully in the future make it a big area? So I see it that way. I'd like to think I have helped IP in whatever ways I could in Sabah, and continue to do so.
I see. Okay, that's a really good advice for students to take in. What about soft skills? Like I'm sure a lot of people have heard about mooting, and well, in your opinion, does excelling in mooting actually guarantee a better pathway, a brighter pathway for litigators, or does advocacy way more?
Okay. There are all sorts of lawyers. Not every lawyer needs to be a court-going lawyer. Court-going lawyer, meaning if you're not a court-going lawyer, I would dare say mooting advocacy is irrelevant. Okay. So a lot of law students, unfortunately, perhaps should not be lawyers. Okay, but that's not the end. Law LLB is one of the most wonderful basic degrees in the world. If you do an LLB, you could be the star barista and the star mixologist, bartender. All right, but it is an excellent general degree. Why do I say this? I mean, I've thought about what makes a law degree so good as a general degree, and what I've come up with is this: it teaches us problem-solving skills. That's all. Okay. I've always said to many people, law is the simplest degree to take. Okay. I respect engineers. I respect architects. I respect doctors, because I think that's way harder than law degree. I mean, if we were honest about it, we're all doing law. You think to yourself, can anyone do this? The answer is yes, anyone can do this, right? What's so hard about your law degree? You just read a lot of books, right? You just read a lot of books, and these could be story books. I mean, law books are boring, but it could be story books. The only thing that we need to be good at is comprehension and how to solve problems. There's only two parts to your skills, okay? Comprehension, problem solving. Right. The rest of it, like I said, I don't need to know maths. I don't need to know science. I don't need to know anything. I can do law.
I see.
Okay? Yeah. So because of that, people want you for your problem solving skills. It's an excellent general degree. And that's why you can be the best barista in the world with a law degree.
I see. That's a very relevant question to the answer to the topic that we are actually doing here today. So a lot of students wonder what they can do with a law degree. There you have it, Mr. Roger. Very much sums it up. Very clear answer right there. I guess what a lot of law students would like to do, I guess for Sabahan law students, they would think about chambering both in here and in Peninsular Malaysia. Do you have any advice for students who want to chamber in both areas?
There is no harm. They're okay. The pros and cons. Okay. It really depends on which law firm you end up at. Because if you, and don't think big is good. All right. That sounds terrible. Anyway, don't think big is good. Big is not always good. I see Sheila sniggering away there. But anyway, big is not necessarily good because, as most of you would know, big may mean that you're in one area and you may not get rotated very far or much, and you will end up being master at due diligence, which what happens to a lot of chambering students in big firms. Okay, master at due diligence, and to be honest, master of due diligence is nothing. All right, you may have just looked at tenancy agreements for 6 months. Okay, and you would end up coming out knowing very little. All right, so it's not so much. I mean, of course, it's good to see the West Malaysian culture and also to look at the Sabah culture, legal firms, because there are differences, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm a proponent for the more the better, the more experiences the better. So I would never say that chambering in West Malaysia is a bad idea. I think it's a great idea, but please choose the right firm. Choose a firm that will rotate you. Ask straight away, where do I go? What work am I going to be doing? Can I rotate amongst several areas of several departments of the firms if you're in a big firm, versus going to a small firm, which could be a fantastic idea, by the way. Okay, because when I was in Australia, I was in a small firm. But the best part about this small firm was this: the reason why I was hired was because all their lawyers left.
Oh,
Their lawyers just left. So they left, and I was the only, and I wasn't a lawyer. I was doing my articles there, articles/chambering, and I had to do the work of all their lawyers. Okay, and
Wow.
and imagine doing that. I learned tons. So do not look at a small firm and snigger at it, because they could teach you a lot more. So what I'm trying to say is, what you should be looking at is the quality of your chambering versus the place, and versus the place meaning West Malaysia or Sabah. But of course, if you have no idea where you're going to go, because you've got no idea whether you even want to be a lawyer, again, like I said, maybe you should be a barista, right? But if you have no idea whether you want to be a lawyer, you should consider doing your chambering in West Malaysia. Why? Because if you ever decide you don't want to be in Sabah, then you can go over there. Whereas for me, I've got to go and chamber in West Malaysia for 6 months before I can be a lawyer there, right? If you've done it much early on, there'll be less pain if you decide you want to go practice there.
I see. Yep, that's really interesting. All right. So I think one of the struggles the students have nowadays is trying to stand out, because we're kind of duplicates of each other nowadays, because everyone has a law degree. So maybe could you enlighten us, perhaps, because you mentioned some areas of laws in Sabah that has potential to grow and develop. Maybe you can share with us some insight in what some of the fields of law that we can look at.
I think actually Sheila mentioned some of these areas. But Sheila, having a law school in itself is not necessarily a good thing, because there are tons of law schools in Malaysia, and I'm not sure just replicating another one will really help. But I've spoken to people like Harry, and I know what he has in mind, which is focus on areas that other law schools are not doing. All right. If we ever had a law school in Sabah, I'd like it to be something along the lines of there's a Taiwan university, which is for the natives of Taiwan, and their sole aim is to try to get native law graduates. Sabah is actually in a very good position. Why? Because the number of natives versus non-natives lawyers is actually a very high percentage. Okay, it's actually very high. I don't know. I was just thinking about it. Maybe it could be maybe even 20 to 30%. Okay, very high. But in Taiwan, the percentage of native lawyers to non-native lawyers is literally like 0.05%. It is shockingly low. All right. shockingly low. But what they did was they focused on different areas of law. So they had lots of law universities in Taiwan, but this university focused on different areas. So for example, they focused on native laws, they focused on environmental laws, these sort of things. This is what also Harry of Forever Sabah has in mind. And I think that is a good idea. If we ever had a law school in Sabah, it should be for niche areas rather than just replicating um, uh, another LLB course. Again, I think perhaps it is arguable that we already have way too many law schools and we are churning out way too many law students already.
I see. I think, yep, I think something to make us stand out would be a really good way to go. A really good advice to encourage students, especially to come back here to study and work as well. Um, I guess since we're running out of time, I guess can you sum up your thoughts? I think a lot of students would be interested to know how is it like to work under the SLS and how is it like to be under it. Can you sum up your advice and thoughts for it?
Okay, so Sabah Law Society has been around for a very short time. We're 2017, so now it's 2020, so it's about 2.5 years. Okay, but I'd like to think in 2.5 years we have had a lot of opportunities and we've taken the opportunities. More importantly, people give you opportunities. It doesn't mean you go anywhere. All right. I've always believed that knocking on the door is not good enough. So when opportunity knocks, my saying is this: open the door, knock opportunity on the head, and drag opportunity in, tie it up, and make it stay there. All right. Opportunities are not good enough because it just means that it's there. But if it's there and you don't do anything about it, you're not going to go anywhere. All right. So what I like to think we have done for SLS is those of you who are in Peninsular Malaysia. I know they like to think they're in Malaysia. In Peninsular Malaysia, every time you see SLS makes a statement, I hope you feel proud. Okay, I hope you feel proud because this is SLS telling Peninsular Malaysia and Sarawak that here we are. All right, we are, like I said, standing up. We are being counted, and we make a difference. This is what I've been trying to do during my time, and one of it is opening up different areas, and that is why we've been banging also on areas like mediation. We've been going out to internationally. By the way, people, when you go internationally, people don't know where Sabah is. Okay, they know where KL is, but they have no idea where Sabah is. Okay, so we go out to the world and we tell everyone, hello. When Bar Council comes to you, they're only talking about West Malaysia. They're not talking about Sabah and Sarawak. We're from Sabah. Would you like to invest in Sabah? Okay, but help yourself. All right, no one else is going to help you. If we're not here screaming and shouting from the trees, I can certainly tell you, your West Malaysian fellow students will not be helping you. All right, they're not gonna. I mean, we're all selfish, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, we're all selfish. Why should I share my rice bowl with you? Right? If I can keep it to myself, more for me, less for you, why not?
Yep, human nature.
Yeah, do everything that you can. And when you do that, you make Sabah into a more and more attractive place. And I'd like to think all of you would want to come back to Sabah and practice rather than think to yourself, maybe I should be in West Malaysia or somewhere else. Okay. So as far as we have been trying to do, you have seen SLS more and more in the limelight. This is the reason why. We want you to know you have a home. Be proud of Sabah. Come back, make a difference.
Yeah. Wow, that's a wonderful sharing by Mr. Roger, everybody. Thank you very much, Mr. Roger, for your valuable insights on your advices for all the law students that are watching right now. Thank you very much. I would like to apologize to the everybody because we had a bit of an issue earlier on, and we had a Q&A session right after this. So we're going to have to extend it a little bit after, maybe to 5 5:50, 5:45, depending on how many questions that we have in the Q&A. So thank you very much to the fall panelists for your perspectives. And now we will be moving on to the Q&A session. And I invite my colleague Brenda Lee to take over the floor. Brenda, if you may.
Hello everyone, I'm Brenda, and now it's the time for our interesting Q&A session. We will now open the floor for questions from the attendees. So we have the first question for Ms. Khairunisa. How does one apply for the SAGC in terms of the procedures to look out for? When is the best time to apply and or whatnot? Also, after a candidate has been accepted, who will determine which division the candidate is going to be in?
Okay, thank you for the question. So if you want to apply, if you want to apply to do your pupillage at SAGC, you would have to send your resume with a cover letter, certified copies of your birth certificate and IC, as well as birth certificates of your parents. Now, this is just a standard procedure for them to process your application. You could send your application via email to our official email, or you could serve it personally, which is far more advisable. Now, depending on the number of the pupils at the moment, that would decide whether they could accept your application or not. This is basically regarding to allowance and stuff like that. Now, currently we have 12 chambering students at the moment, but most of them are finishing next year. And you can start applying as soon as you finish law school, as that would normally take up some time to process your application. And as for divisions, we have a rotation system for our chambering students. So it's more like a 1 month per division. You would be in litigation this month and perhaps drafting the next month. That's all.
Thank you. And we have another question for you as well.
Okay.
Do you feel that serving the public in the AGC, are you able to absorb the criticisms of any current government at the time? And does this make your work any harder?
Criticisms. Okay. Well, with every change of government, of course, the workload would be more hectic and crazy a bit, because there would be a change of decisions. Perhaps contracts could also be terminated. So of course, it would be a bit difficult, but I could say that we could manage it as time passes by. Absorbing the criticisms, I don't know in terms of how to absorb the criticism, but it's more like becoming a civil servant would mean that you work and serve for the current government. So regardless of any criticisms, you just focus on the work that you have in front of you. That is essentially my job, working for the government state of Sabah.
Yep. Thank you for your answer, Ms. Khairunisa.
You're welcome.
We have a question for Ms. Sheelasheena. With your broad spectrum of jobs, do you feel that us law students should not confine ourselves to mainstream legal work, as many of us are torn by the stigma of just being a lawyer?
I think from the other panelists, and from what Mr. Roger already said, is really a good degree, depending on what you want to do. So I think at the end of the day, you really, I also echo what Mr. Roger saying, that you really have to make an impact and you have to left a footprint. How do you want people to remember you in lifetime? So choose that and fight for it and do things. I think if you have a law degree, that's a good start, because a lot of opportunity outside there that you can actually venture and be good at. So you see what Amanda is doing. I think you have a lot of choice. So I agree. It is really not a bad choice, not a bad second choice for me to go to law school from architect. Although I really miss being that person, with all the drawing and mathematics and all that. I really miss those time. But I guess right now, when I'm already stabilized with my job, that become a hobby. Right now, perhaps I can be paid as a painter because I have that skill. So I think you really have to be open mind and finish your law school with good degree, with good pointers, and then be open with the world outside.
And we have another question for you as well, Miss Sheila. What are some of the things an NGO looks for when employing candidates? Are there any sort of skills in particular that employers will look for?
There's something that perhaps this is a practical tips that I might want to share. NGO like WWF or any other NGO, a big NGO under the UN umbrella, usually they really want you to have a few years of experience, working experience, a solid working experience. So that is actually will make you very competitive when you apply for NGO like this or NGO under UN umbrella. Another thing about soft skill or even NGO works is that if you have another language that you can master under UN, definitely you really have to have French or other language that the UN use, which you are good if you can master that. And most of the time, they really want you to have another degree, which is master degree. But some of the NGO like WWF as well, they recognize if you have an experience and professional certification like me. When I enter WWF, they recognize that not only I have law degree, but I have call to the bar. I do all the court and my network with the government. So that actually make me outstand with other application that apply for the job at the time. So I think if you really want to go for this line of work, make sure that you have the solid experience first. Make yourself have that, learn that basic thing, and then go for this big organization NGO like us. Like I think soft skill, like what Amanda was saying, or even other panelists, communication is really important. Analytical thinking is really important. Apart from that, I think the teamwork to be able to actually working with others, that is also important. You cannot always feel that you are in silo, because working in like organization like this, you are a team. You cannot produce a result on your own. So I think that's something that you really have to develop, like how to mix with people, how to accept opinion without judging. All that you have to develop while you are working. I also believe that the best lesson is when you working, because that is where you stumble and then you learn, and then you can actually you are reflection, you do reflection on yourself. What should I do, what should not I do? So I think that's the thing that I can share.
Thank you, Miss Sheila. We have a question for Miss Amanda. Do you think that in the competitive world now, taking an LLM on top of the LLB is becoming more common? And also, what are the main advantages of taking an LLM?
Good question. Obviously, it's going to make a difference in terms of your personal ROI. So your return of investment is going to be better when you have an LLM. Both what Mr. Roger and Michelle has said, the law degree is technically a general degree when you have an LLM to supplement that. So it gives you competitive advantage. Obviously, it does make a little bit of difference in terms of your salary as well. So just that one.
And we have another question for you as well. As someone who has a background in international law, what are your thoughts on the employment opportunities in commercial international law, such as maritime law, for example?
Again, a very good question, but unfortunately, I've been in the industry, in the financial industry, 5 years now, so I really don't know the prospect of employment in international law or maritime law. That probably I would pass to Mr. Roger, who would probably have a much more better view in terms of what are the current outlook of international law. If I may, Mr. Roger.
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Roger.
Okay. Maritime in West Malaysia, certainly maritime law is a fairly big thing. To be honest, the amount of trade that comes into Sabah is not that much. All right. That is the reason why maritime law is not that big a deal in Sabah. Some of you who may have seen, please, all of you, join the Facebook SLS page. And if you join the Sabah, the SLS Facebook page, you will realize that we are giving 12 classes for free on maritime law. Please join. And it is by Arun Kasi, who's a well-known writer of maritime law. Join us, and if you do, you will see that you will be able to actually learn about enough of maritime law to say that you have some knowledge about that. Okay, but that is us trying to grow the area. Okay, trying to grow the area, trying to say, okay, look, lawyers, we need to reskill, we need to retool. Okay, there are too many banking lawyers, there are too many criminal lawyers, there are too many sell and purchase lawyers, conveyancing lawyers. We don't need any more. Okay, but what we do need more of are international lawyers. What we do need more of are maritime lawyers. So the question is not so much what I said earlier about whether that is a growing area. Make it grow. All right. Why do I say make it grow? Very simple. The new capital of Indonesia is going to be next door to Samarinda, right? Make it happen. All right, make it happen. So why can't we export legal services to Samarinda? Why can't we export more things to Samarinda, and therefore more shipping, more international laws, and so on and so forth? So if you always start thinking along the lines of, is there enough work? The answer is no. All right, but like I said, make it happen. Just like when I first started doing IP work here, everyone would say, you get no work here, right? Initially, yes, but here's a little thing that you don't understand. If I file trademarks in Sabah, there's absolutely no difference between me filing it in Sabah versus someone filing it in West Malaysia, okay? So I can just slash the cost and say, I'll charge 10 cents for filing a trademark in Sabah. I'll just get all the work from West Malaysia. What difference? Someone in America will look at, I want to file a trademark in Malaysia, okay? And then looks up the internet. Oh, okay. Roger is offering it at 10 cents. Do you think he cares I'm in Sabah? Not at all, right? He will just ask the question, can I file it in Malaysia? The answer is yes, Sabah, Malaysia, right? There you go, right? Meaning you've got to think, how do I do this? Not, is it there? A lot of times things are not there, but you make it there.
Thank you, Mr. Roger, for that insightful answer on maritime law. And we have a question for you as well, Mr.
Okay,
Roger.
sure.
Can you describe a bit more about the law on sexuality in terms of who does it govern over and what are the important aspects of the law in real life practice?
Okay, actually law and sexuality, I wish everyone, if you have time, at least read about it, if not study it. For example, what is now in the newspapers a lot is about if you were a woman married overseas to a foreigner, right? Why is it that my child is not automatically a Malaysian? Okay, this is law and sexuality, very much so. Why does it discriminate me from him? We're both Malaysians. This is law and sexuality. When you go through the law, you realize that, oh heck, there's tons of this in the law. All right, recognizing, I mean, even for example, sexuality, not only men and women. Again, like I said, LBGT as well. Okay, why does it say that only men and women can marry? For example, okay, that is also law and sexuality. All right, do they have rights? Should they have rights? These are all things that you need to think. And when you study an area like law and sexuality, it will get you thinking, is the law fair? Perhaps it's not. And I can honestly tell you, for example, prostitution, okay? Soliciting is a crime, all right? But using the services is not a crime, okay? So this is again law and sexuality. Why does woman get punished? The guy who uses it, he doesn't get punished. Why? All right. So these are the things that if you think about it, you realize that the law is a very sexualized animal. and most of the time it is very male dominated.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roger. And we have another question as well for you. The Malaysian Bar in Peninsular Malaysia had floated the idea of expanding the Legal Profession Act into Sabah and Sarawak. What are your takes on this? And does it affect the future practice if it does expand to Sabah?
Do we have another day on this? Okay, anyway, all right. Look, guys, do everything that you can. Never ever let it happen. Okay, never ever let it happen. Why? Very simple. This is the last thing left standing. The last thing left standing. If you look at what are the rights of professions in Sabah, none except for legal profession. Okay, I can tell you, whenever we meet architects from Sabah, we meet engineers from Sabah, we meet doctors from Sabah, the other professions, you know what the question they ask is? How do we be like you are? Okay, they ask that question. Do you know why they ask that question? Very simply put, they are being, things that are happening to them are being dictated from West Malaysia. Okay, I mean, of course, there's nothing wrong with that because they're the largest numbers, all right? But they are basically, so Sabah will become a state branch, okay? They'll become a state branch of the national management of, what does MIN say for Institute? Okay, okay. Anyway, for example, Medical Association of Malaysia, okay, or PAM, Persatuan Architect Malaysia. They're just a branch, okay, versus the bar, Sabah, Sarawak, and West Malaysia. We are not a state bar. We are on equal footing with the West Malaysian, the Malayan bar. Okay, in fact, I'd like to call it the Malayan bar because, again, here's a misnomer. When you call it the Malaysian bar and you go around the world, people think, oh, you're from Malaysia, right? If you call it the Malayan bar, it makes a lot more sense. Of course, they'll fight you with it and tell you, no, it's in the LPA, it says we're the Malaysian bar. That's the only reason why they say they're the Malaysian bar. But they know it's only the Malayan bar, right? So yes, at one point in time, we were that close to having the LPA being extended to Sabah. It didn't happen, and you thank whatever God you pray to that it didn't happen, because now with our amendments to the Advocates Ordinance, I dare say it will never happen. Okay, that has come and passed. We are now a statutory bar. Before we became a statutory bar, it was very, very possible that LPA would be extended to Sabah. And because we're a statutory bar now, it's highly unlikely. I don't think it will happen. But please, guys, you guys are the future. When you come and take over SLS, remember this: never ever let Malaya overtake us. You are an independent statutory bar, and you are on equal footing with them. Be proud, and make sure whenever they tell you anything else, you tell them, I am from Sabah, I have my own bar of equal standing with you.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Roger. And we have a general question, which is directed to all the panelists. If a law student is financially able to go for the bar course or the CLP, which one should he or she go for and why? Maybe Miss Khairunisa.
I don't think I could contribute that much to this question though, because I did mine in local university. So I guess pass the question to other panelists.
I think I can answer that one. If you ask me, do both. Why? Okay. We're talking about BPTC, right? Yeah. Okay. BPTC is actually an excellent overall course. But the problem with BBTC is when you come back here, your knowledge of Malaysian law is zero. Okay. I have seen people doing CLP and the amount of information that they cram into their head, it is nothing short of amazing. Okay. Rules of court, individual statutes and all of these things, you will not learn in BPTC. You learn it in CLP, right? So if you ask which one is better, I would say neither. But if you can afford it, please do both. And if you have the time to do both.
Miss Amanda, do you have any take on this question?
Based on the experience that my other colleagues have basically well, I knew from my other colleagues, they would say BPTC would be a better if you have the means, and of course, if you have the capability to do the BPTC. As Mr. Roger mentioned, it's more they teach a lot about practicality, um, and of course, you also get some kind of an internal exposure outside. But I also echo what Mr. Roger would say, because CLP is very important that you get to know your Malaysian law. And if you're thinking to practice back here, then I would say you really don't need to. I'm a kind of person that I take a stand either is or not. So I would say if you want to work in Malaysia, make sure that you take CLP. You don't want to work in Malaysia, then maybe BPTC is a good route. But it depends on whether you're able to.
Thank you, Miss Amanda. Miss Sheila, do you have any answer to this question?
I like what Nisa said. I graduated locally, so I don't think I will give a better answer from Amanda or Roger. I think that's answered the question.
All right, thank you. We have another question for Miss Khairunisa. Do you ever feel like you're in constant competition with the opposing counsel during trials, or do you feel secure most of the time in presenting your case?
Well, my answer to that would be my mindset. It is not me competing with the opposing counsel, but it is more to my efforts in putting my set of arguments and grounds much more clearly to court. So my main focus is for the court to see my point, presenting my client's case better. So I'm not competing. My measure of success would be if the court actually understood the laws and legal principles that I set forward to. Yes.
Thank you, Miss Nisa. And we also have a question for Miss Sheila. During the time when you were working as the DPP, have you been forced to handle any case you were not willing to handle?
I think I answered this in the chat, but well, when you are attached to a government organization like that, you have a boss. So most of the time, the boss will decide which case that you should. And if you really, if you really want to be a good officer, you cannot say, "Boss, I'm not going to do this because I don't like." Well, I don't think you can say that, right? So I think if you ever go to organization like governments and become a DPP, don't have the mindset that I cannot handle this case, or this is so difficult for me, or something against my principle or whatever. So, but against your principle, you need to speak up loud. But I think that personal choices sometimes you really have to put aside because you are new, and you also trying to learn here as much as you can. So, however hard is the case is, just do it and ask questions. You have a lot of senior in attorney general chambers, a lot of them good experienced officer. All you need to do is just knock the door, ask the question, and do it. I think like what I share, my first case, I was alone. First case, imagine alone, and I lost the case and I was crying. I think what you have to always remember as a DPP or even the government officer, it is not about winning or losing. It's about presenting your evidence to the court. I think that's really have to have that mindset, and don't always have the assumption that you cannot do that jobs. So yeah. But to answer the questions, Yes, most of the time. I think for the past, for that 4 years I was in AG, a lot of cases I do not want to take. Okay, there's cases that is involve a gangster. You know, there's one time my car tire was slashed because I handled the case. So I think, but I was followed by cars. So that things will happen. But I do not want it to happen to me. But the thing is that that's the experience. Looking back, that's the best experience that I have.
Thank you, Miss Sheila. And we have another question for you as well. Has your work in Sabah's environmental field been obstructed by any federal laws?
I think Roger will like this. I think you see when we study constitutional law, if you haven't grasped the whole book about the constitution, please try do it now, and the earlier you do, the better. I think we do have the ninth schedule. Under the ninth schedule, we have a state list, federal list, and all that list. If you read the whole thing, interestingly, you will find out that environment issue is actually a bit vague. You see, environment, the word environment itself is actually really robust. I mean, what does constitute environment? A lot. So if you look at that schedule, you will see only few things are stated there for the state list, but a lot of thing about environment is actually intertwined, and it's actually a lot of conflict. So this is a field that if I want to talk about it, I don't think I can finish in 2 hours. So what I want you to actually know here, definitely there's a conflict between state and federal. Not only environment, but there's also other issue. But we do have constitutions to start with, but we also have certain issue that I think we really have to start discussing about the hard issue, the issue that people doesn't want to talk about, the right between Sabahan and a state right or federal right. There's a lot of issue that people avoid talking about it. Even some lawyers doesn't even want to talk about it. But as a law student, please try to actually do that, to understand that you will see amount of amount of information, not only information but also amount of opportunity. As I said, if you can knock the opportunity, something that you can do here in Sabah. I do not, you see there's a lot of opportunity, but you have to find it. There's when it's the problem, when there's a problem, when there's an issue, there is something that you should do as a lawyer.
Thank you, Miss Sheila. We have a question for Miss Amanda. In your line of work, is there a lot of competition for employees like yourself?
I did answer this in the chat as well, but let me just reiterate. It's a yes and no answer. In this one, it's a bit vague because yes, there's a lot of competition because a lot of law graduates in the financial industry, but particularly if you pick up the area such as what I've picked up, which is sustainable finance, sustainability, it's still in the development phase. So not a lot of people are actually the subject matter in this area. So if you pick up like this one and maybe fintech, for example, then there's not a lot of competition yet. I say yet, but in the future you probably don't know.
Okay, thank you, Miss Amanda. And this question is for Mr. Roger. As much as there are too many law students in Malaysia, would having a university solely focused in the legal major, LLB, would this help Sabah economically and help provide more employment and investment into the state?
I actually don't think it's about okay. So for example, what we have been doing, which the Bar Council also does, but we have also been doing this. When we go on our legal visits, we hold a function for potential investors who want to invest in Sabah, and we will tell. So we will invite. We will make arrangements with MITI, MIDA, where they will send people to a place, a hotel somewhere, and we will meet them and we will tell them about Sabah. We'll tell them about the opportunities. We'll tell them about the land laws and whether they can own properties and so on and so forth. I think that helps investment into Sabah. not so much having a law school in itself. Unless you're thinking along the lines of a law school that the other people in Bimpiaga will want to come, but then you have to ask yourself a question: who in Bimpiaga wants to come? Philippines have their own law. Indonesia has got a different law. So who in Bimpiaga is actually coming into Sabah to do law? And so again, like I said, if we had an area of focus more on native laws, environmental laws, these sort of areas, niche areas that the other law schools are not doing, yes, I think that could be something. We could get more students coming in, but just replicating another LLB, that's not, I've thought long and hard about this. Until today, I still don't think it will really help too many things. Unless you're saying that the law students in Sabah have got no opportunities to be lawyers because they cannot get into any law schools in Malaysia, then yes. But if that is not the answer, you're just saying, I want to make more lawyers, I don't think that is necessarily a good thing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roger. And sorry, but as time is running short, I will pose the last question for Mr. Roger, and this is from Cassidy. There are increasingly many interesting and niche areas of law modules that we can choose to study in university. Would picking too many of these modules create a lack of knowledge in more traditional fields, which could impact our future careers?
Hi, Cassidy. I don't think so. All right. The reason is the core modules that you are forced to study are good enough. Okay. Everything else, I think you could study different things. You can pick maritime here. You can pick IP there. You can pick law and sexuality, which is very much like me, and pick computer-assisted legal research. Right. If you think about it, oh gosh, that's very varied, right? Where's the unifying theme? There wasn't one, right? But this is the beauty of law school. Your core modules that you cannot run away from is sufficient for you to do your LLB. Everything else is a bonus. So for me, the more bonus I can get, I would take more of it.
Thank you, Mr. Roger. And thank you everyone for your questions. Unfortunately, we don't really have enough time to address all of them, and I apologize for that. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us to the end. Before the event draws to a close, I invite once again our president, Joshua McDonald, to give his last say.
All right, thanks, Brenda. I want to apologize firstly because we couldn't take in all of the questions. I have seen a few interesting questions, but we are short on time. Maybe we can, sort it out next time. We'll find a way. So first, I want to thank everyone for attending today's discussion and supporting us by attending this webinar meet. And I hope everyone will be inspired by today's webinar meet. And I mean, considering that we have wonderful and honest experience shared by our panelists. I would like to thank all of them, all of the panelists for joining us today. And it's been a great experience interacting with you guys. Before we end today's meet, if you're a graduate and would you like to know more about any of our panelists or in terms of the appointment, feel free to contact us. You can go through Guns through us to have a contact, or if any of the panelists would like to connect with each of the panelists, you can contact us too. So you have no problem with that. So do keep in touch with us via WhatsApp and our various social media affiliated to us. Before you leave, don't forget to fill up the survey in relation to today's webinar discussion. The link is available in the chat box. And before leaving off, we would like to wish everyone here Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Have a
Merry
good
Christmas.
Christmas.
Take
Merry
care.
Christmas.